Whether you've never heard of it or know it well, there's something that stirs in us when we hear the word trauma. And though we often know it when we see it, we often don't know what to do when faced with trauma, much less how to recover from it. But what if I told you that you can learn everything you need to know about personal tragedy from a Sonic movie? Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today we're taking a crash course on trauma with the Blue Blur and its arch rival, because Sonic 3 can teach us what trauma is, how it impacts us, and how to, and how not to, recover from it. Let's go! It's guidance time!
Maria!
Today, we have so many mental health words that get thrown around. Narcissist, depression, anxiety, and sometimes they get used even when the person using it has no idea what they're talking about. But out of all of them, trauma might be the most misunderstood. So in order to look at Sonic and Shadow's pain, we gotta define what kind of pain we're looking at. To use a meme, trauma is an event that causes great
emotional damage.
But it's here that things start to get a little sticky, because there are actually different kinds of trauma. Big T and little t trauma. Big T traumas are the kind of thing we think of when we hear the word trauma. Losing your home, going to war, or someone close to you passing away. These disasters can mess up your life, assuming you survive it. Now, with the little t traumas, they're not life-threatening, but they're still distressing to go through. Divorce, harassment, or moving away all count. But what defines trauma is not what happened to you, but how it changes you. Because did you know that trauma changes your brain?
Did you know that?
Here's a picture of a healthy brain from a scan. All the colors we see, the greens, yellows, and reds, all good things, since it all means that the brain is active. Now here's a picture of a brain of someone who's gone through trauma. You see the difference, right? Not only is there less color, but in some areas there's no color at all. Trauma is more than just a bad thing that happens to you. It's something that can literally hurt your mind. And when looking at the world's fastest hedgehogs, we see that not even they are immune to this pain. With Shadow, his trauma is the basis for his whole tragic backstory. Having spent his life on a gun base, Shadow's family consisted of Dr. Gerald Robotnik, Dr. Eggman's grandfather, and his granddaughter Maria. As the Chaos Controller began to understand Earth and his people, Maria and Robotnik were right there to help him every step of the way.
Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
But suddenly, gun forces go in after the trio because they see Shadow as a threat that needs to be taken out. And by the end of it all, Maria doesn't make it out alive. Losing a loved one? That's definitely a big T trauma. But what about the Blue Blur? While nothing happened to him in this movie, except for the one thing that almost happened, for Sonic we have to go back to the first film. It's here that the speedster is forcibly taken from his home, leaving his guardian Longclaw to fend off invaders, and she ultimately gives up her life to save him. Sounds like another big T trauma right there. Actually, that's two if you count the fact that he was forced to leave his homeworld or die. For both Sonic and Shadow, they had intensely negative things happen to them that they had no control over. But even with this, we have to realize that trauma hits everybody differently. What will mess up one person won't necessarily mess up someone else. For example, two people can move to a new place, have a new home, school, everything. Person A might get wrecked by the experience and they become really sad and homesick, while person B is totally chill with it and has no problem with the change. For person A, moving away was traumatic for them. So does that mean that person B was mentally stronger than person A?
Nope.
No, not at all. Because trauma isn't determined by your mental strength, but by your triggers. Going back to our example, person A might have loved the community and sense of belonging their hometown gave them because they lived there all their life, and being taken away from that made them feel alone. But person B is in a military family that moves all the time, so the sense of family doesn't come from the location that might change, but from the people who come with you no matter where you go. We all have different triggers, and it's those triggers that determine how you could be traumatized. So we now know what trauma is and the messiness that comes with it, and even took a peek at how it can mess with our mentals. Now let's lead into that and see what the damage of trauma really looks like. Despite what it might look like on the surface, both Sonic and Shadow responded to their pain in ways that are more similar than you think. One example is how their trauma caused them to isolate themselves. Even if you don't count the 50 years Dark Sonic was on ice, when he got out, Shadow was perfectly content with being by himself and had no interest in hanging around anybody else. And though we didn't see it in this movie, Sonic also had his own moments of isolation in his first adventure. And though wanting to spend time alone every once in a while is a good thing actually, if you want to spend all your free time by yourself, then we gotta talk. For those hard hit by trauma, they may want to keep themselves away. Either to keep themselves away from the people or places that harm them, or they become so broken that their home or room is the only place that they feel safe anymore. And then you add on to the fact that loneliness is on the rise all over the world, and that some folk want to connect to others but feel like they just can't. That's a dangerous combo. As humans, we don't grow in isolation. In fact, we get weaker. Science shows that those who keep to themselves too much are not only more anxious and depressed, but they're also at risk of getting sick more often than those who venture out. And this isolation can lead to the second sign of someone suffering from trauma: anger. In Shadow's case, it's super obvious since fury is this guy's default emotion. His look, his vibe, every word that comes out of this anthropomorphic hedgehog's mouth is bathed in a pool of barely controlled rage. And it's understandable. What happened to him and Maria never should have happened at all. So he feels cheated out of the life that he knew and the closest friend he's ever had. And with Sonic, we saw what happened when he thought Tom kicked the bucket, right? After the shock of losing his first human friend and low-key father figure wore off, Sonic lost it. He was ready to go scorched earth on anybody and anything that got in his way. Kinda like the other guy. And this is what makes unresolved trauma so dangerous. No one deserves to have traumatic things happen to them, and it always feels unfair when tragedies find a way into our life. That's why SNS were ticked off. Why did it have to be them? They didn't do anything wrong. And perhaps you've caught yourself saying the same thing during hard times. And when this feeling of being wronged by the universe combines with your sadness, it can create a storm of wrath. To us, it can look like being like Shadow and being moody. Or it can look like Sonic's rage and you're ready to snap at anyone who bothers you. Anger, like any other emotion, is perfectly normal. But when you use your anger to hurt others, isolate yourself, or lash out, then that's a problem. In fact, when you do that, you put yourself at risk for falling for a trap that both of our speedsters almost fell for: losing who you are. We see this the most with Sonic. When he thought he lost Tom, we see the blue blur become someone who didn't exist before this moment. Overcome by his loss, he became angry, yes, but also vengeful, willing to end Robotnik and Shadow. He also became selfish by betraying the promise he made to Knuckles and Tails to not use the Master Emerald, to now be willing to fight both of them in order to get the power he needed to get his revenge. This is not the same character we've been following for 3 movies now. And even with Shadow, you can see a difference. Sure, in the flashbacks he was still super serious, but the inner rage beast just wasn't there. He was thoughtful and adventurous. You could even say he was just a more mature version of Sonic. But now, Homeboy was perfectly fine with wiping out the entire Earth as a way to balance out the pain he felt inside. But why would he want to wipe out everybody if most people had nothing to do with his situation? It comes down to this phrase: hurt people hurt people. People we call bullies, mean, or toxic are that way because at their core, they're actually traumatized people who use their brokenness as an excuse to try to break others. And that's not an excuse. What they do is still wrong. It's just an explanation for who they are. And these things can happen to us too. Even if we aren't causing pain to others or losing our sense of self, our situation could look different. It could make us scared of experiencing that same trauma again, to the point of creating anxiety. And if you want to know more about anxiety, go check out my last video. But it can also look like depression, where you have such a strong sadness that it takes over your life, leaving you feeling empty about anything and everything. And that's not too far from going into full doomer mode and being perfectly fine with letting the world burn, because that's where Shadow was at. And these things can happen with big T and little t traumas, because it's not about what happened, but how it impacts you. But the good news is that even if you've been hurt by trauma, you're not doomed to living like this. There is a way out.
I felt this pain for so long. It's all I know. Did your pain eventually go away?
No. But in time, I learned there's something even more powerful than pain.
No matter what you've gone through, whether it's trauma with a big T or little t, you always have the power to climb out of it. And our hedgehog duo show the way in how to recover. The first thing we need to do is feel what we feel, just not be controlled by it. Sonic and Shadow's problem in dealing with their pain in Sonic 3 was not that they were angry, but that they allowed their anger to make choices for them. And when they did, their anger always made the wrong choice. Never hold in your emotions, because it will always come out if you hold it in. But in those moments, always ask yourself if what you're thinking of doing is going to hurt you or someone else. If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then shut it down. And if need be, talk it over with someone to come up with a better plan. One thing you can do to help calm your mind and gain control over your emotions is to recall the good. The next time you're thinking negative thoughts or you feel like you're losing control, think of 3 things that are good in your life right at that moment while taking deep breaths. The breathing gives your body a chance to calm down, and seeing the good in any moment allows your mind to stop replaying bad memories or only having negative things to think about. And lastly, don't do it alone. Looking back to Sonic 3, the blue blur had Tails and Knuckles to bring him back to the brink of making a massive mistake. And though Shadow had all the wrong influences at first, when he finally had the chance to talk to Sonic instead of fighting him, he saw not only a way to heal from his trauma, but a way to make things right for the wrongs he made. You don't have to heal by yourself. Reach out to someone and let them know what you're going through. If you have a school counselor, go find them and give them the opportunity to help. Looking back on these tips, they all have one thing in common. They give the power back to you. Like we said, we don't control if or when something traumatic happens to us, but we do control how we respond to it. And by focusing on what you can control and how you can make your situation better, you're already starting to recover. And let me tell you right now that this won't be easy. No one recovers from their emotional pain overnight. It takes time and a lot of work. Be determined and also be patient with yourself, because healing has its good days and bad. And you may even be asking, what's the end game of all of this? To never feel bad about your trauma again? To never even think about it? No, because like the good things in your life, the hard times are also a part of your life story. The goal of healing with trauma, though, is making sure your pain doesn't become your identity. When we do, we run the risk of becoming like Shadow. But if we continue to put in the work, our lives could look more like Sonic's. It's true that hurt people, but just like we saw with Sonic talking to Shadow on the moon, we also see that healed people help people, starting with themselves. Life is a grind sometimes. You wake up, get ready for your day, go to school, work or whatever, get back home, eat, sleep, and do it all again tomorrow. On one hand, consistency is actually good and something we need as humans. However, if you're going through the motions in life, just doing the bare minimum, that's a sign of a bigger problem. But as it turns out, the MCU's latest movie not only understands the struggle of a life without purpose, but gives solutions on how to fix it. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And right on the heels of the latest Marvel release, let's see how the Thunderbolt misfits can help you find meaning, not only in your day-to-day, but every day of your life. Let's go! It's guidance time!
I can't think of a worse group of people trying to work together.
Speed, John, stop! Where are you?
Before we get too deep into this, I want to clear something up. There will be some minor spoilers for Thunderbolts, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't freak out. And if you have seen it, just know I won't be going into full spoiler land. But if you want that spoiler-filled deep dive, let me know in the comments. Now let's start with our motley crew, this random assortment of characters from Marvel movies and shows that, let's keep it a buck, not everybody cared about. First up in this little box of chocolates is Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, whom since Endgame has come a long way from being the guy who was mind-controlled into offing Iron Man's parents. He's actually a senator now, with a suit and everything. Next up is Yelena. And if you don't know her, then thanks for the self-report that you didn't watch Black Widow. She's Natasha's little sister who was also trained/brainwashed into being an assassin from an early age. And the Black Widow connection continues with our next member, the Red Guardian. Not only is he Yelena and Natasha's father, he's also got that super soldier serum running through his veins. In his glory days, he was pretty much the Captain America of Russia, Captain Commie if you will. Next up, Ghost, who is able to phase through solid objects. And if you don't know who she is, then congratulations, you missed out on Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, you missed it, but you didn't miss out. There's a reason why Ant gets dunked on so bad in Endgame. And lastly, John Walker, or as I like to call him, store brand Captain America. After Steve saved the universe and returned as Joe Biden,
we finally beat Medicare.
Johnny was tapped to be the next Cap, but between his anger issues, entitlement, and crippling imposter syndrome, he couldn't cut it, and Falcon swooped in to take back the shield that was his all along.
You've got to do better.
And that's our heroes for the film, a bunch of anti-heroes and straight-up villains thrown together. And if you're thinking,
but you forgot someone!
Yes, I did. But that's because that guy's whole existence is a spoiler. And this ain't the place for that. But despite the randomness of this group, there's one thing that brings them together. The fact that at one point, all these guys had no idea what to do with their lives.
There is something wrong with me. An emptiness.
Aimless, directionless, lost. Almost every single member of the Thunderbolts could be described in these words, but each for a different reason. Now pay attention to how each bolt is living and ask yourself if you or someone you know is acting like this. First up, Johnny Walker. Even though years have passed since he lost the title of Captain America, he's still been crashing out. He's angry and short-tempered, unable to live with the L that Sam Wilson gave him. With Ghost, everything is about survival. In Ant-Man 2, the deal with her was that her ability to phase in and out made her body unstable. But since then, she's been taken care of. But she's still living just to get by, with no other motivation. Looking over to Soviet Man, when he's not miserable, he's reliving the glory days, wishing they could come back. His story is almost exactly the same as Mr. Incredibles in the first movie. And Yelena? Let's just call it what it is. She's depressed. She has all the signs. She barely has any motivation to do anything. She carries an overwhelming feeling of sadness that's only interrupted by her apathy and not feeling anything at all. She feels guilty for all the lives that she's taken in her line of work. And lastly, she feels hopeless that her life will get any better. It's to the point that she even describes this feeling as a void. Shoot, I'd call her a burnout if it weren't for the fact that she's still good at her job. Now with all the bolts, we see symptoms of someone who is emotionally drained, even empty. And there's always a reason for that. It could be mistakes that were made in the past, legit bad actions that we wish we could take back, or good choices that we wish we made but didn't. It all comes down to regrets. The Thunderbolts had them, and so do we. And with these regrets or down moments in our lives, sometimes we're able to bounce back, other times it takes us a minute to recover, but every once in a while, we just get stuck. Our emotions are ultimately temporary, like waves in the ocean that come and go. But if you find yourself feeling angry all the time, or you're about to cry most of the time, then that's a problem. And letting these feelings dominate you and become part of your identity will only make these feelings stronger. And letting these thoughts and feelings linger in you don't just make you feel bad. Over time, it can even damage your brain. Memory issues, mood swings. Shoot, holding on to misery is even capable of shrinking your brain. So what can you do if you notice these habits or patterns in you? Let's start with the don't list. First, don't isolate. Every single one of the bolts starts out alone. They don't have anyone they can reliably go to for support. Even the father-daughter duo of anti-heroism can't check in on each other except if one wants something from the other first. Studies show that closing ourselves off only intensifies whatever negative feelings we already have, only making ourselves feel worse. Second, don't stop caring. Deciding not to care is only a few steps away from straight up quitting. And if you're already losing motivation, telling yourself that even that doesn't matter is a huge red flag. And last one, don't think that whatever you're feeling will just go away on its own. Yes, I did just say that emotions tend to come and go. Thanks for paying attention. But if you're fighting with these feelings day after day, chances are it's not just gonna leave you on its own. Because if it was going to, it would have by now. In fact, when you do nothing, you're guaranteeing that you'll wake up the next day with that same feeling right next to you, exactly where you left it when you fell asleep the night before. But now that we know what not to do, what can we do instead? Well, here's a starter. Don't run from the void. Instead, confront it head on.
We can find a way together.
There was one Thunderbolt I conveniently left out in the last section, and I did it on purpose because he's the only one who's been where the others were, but came out the other side. Good old Bucky. But the only reason why he was able to go from mind control mercenary to politician is because he put in the work. Because he already tried running away from his past, and it low-key kicked off Civil War. And until OG Cap rescued him, the only thing giving up did for him was make him a Hydra puppet. For BB, confronting the void meant getting help. In Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we see Bucky go to counseling for his issues. Sure, he was forced by the government to go, but when he started taking it seriously, he started to change. And in your case, you might need some outside help, and that's okay. Reach out to a school counselor, social worker, and have a chat with them. We already know doing nothing won't help, so what do you have to lose? Another step we see both Bucky and Yelena take is to repair relationships. In Black Widow, it was awesome to see Natasha, Yelena, and their dad on a heroic mission like they were the MCU's version of the Incredibles. But when Black Widow passed away, that close family bond died with her. The Red Captain and Yelena act more like close friends who grew apart than family. But as Thunderbolts goes on, we see Yelena rebuild that relationship. And with Bucky, it's understandable to not be much of a people person when you've murked so many people. But even he was willing to make things right and even ask for forgiveness. If your emptiness is due to mistakes in your past, try your best to make amends. If you did someone wrong, own up to it, don't make excuses, apologize, and make a plan so that it doesn't happen again. And if it's the best thing to do in your situation, go and talk to the person that you wronged. This can be messy depending on the situation, but in general, if the person you want to talk to is someone you still want to have a relationship with and they're still alive, go ahead and make that effort. And remember, You're doing this for you, not the other person. So even if they don't forgive you or want nothing to do with you, as long as you had the conversation, you're good. But let's say you do all of this. You might be asking, how do I know when I'm better? Fair question. It could look like many things. Being happier, having community and friends you trust, having a reason to want to get out of bed in the morning. But perhaps the biggest sign that you found purpose is that you're helping others heal. And again, we gotta go back to my boy Bucky. Even though that was not his original goal when he showed up in the movie, we see through White Wolf's actions towards the Thunder Crew what a person who's found meaning in life looks like. Yelena does this too, but that's going into spoiler land. For us, it may not be as obvious, but the opportunity is still there. We are surrounded by people who feel lost and like they're just going through the motions. Being willing to listen to other people's problems and helping where you can without doing the work for them goes a long way. At first glance, Thunderbolts looks like a Suicide Squad knockoff. But nah, this ain't the Suicide Squad. This is a support group for super soldiers and brainwashing survivors. But even through the randomness that brought them together, the Thunderbolts became more than their past and found their purpose for the future. Now it's your turn. What can you do to find your purpose right now?
Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And yeah, you saw the title, and I'm not playing. Is one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies simply the end result of what happens when folks get hooked on drugs? How on earth is Venom a Tootsie Roll toddler? I'm glad you asked. Let's go! It's guidance time! If I'm gonna break down how Buff Boy Spider-Man is just a battery acid baby, we need to break down Venom himself. The character of Venom is actually a fusion of two other characters, Eddie Brock, a regular human person, and a symbiote, an alien that looks more like living throw-up than anything actually alive. And it's when they bond together that they become Venom and gain all the cool powers and stuff. And it's here that we have Exhibit A. Just like how the stuff preys on people in pain, Eddie was a man in pain. Most of the time, people who are hooked on drugs take it to deal with something wrong in their lives. It could be a loss they experienced, not having a job, or their life just being overall trash in that moment. People who get hooked aren't evil, they're sad, scared, and broken. And Eddie was the same way before he met the symbiote. Brock was a reporter in his heyday, and he was great at what he did. He did more than pursue stories. He pursued the truth. But sadly, all it took was one mistake to destroy his life. And it was on the case to find a criminal named the Sin Eater, but ended up pegging the wrong guy as the perp. It was when the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man found the Sin Eater's true identity, Brock's rep was wrecked. He got fired from his job, his wife left him, and his dad disowned him. It's pretty fair to say that Eddie was in a dark place, which made him a perfect match for the symbiote. The symbiote was attracted to Brock because the alien itself was also rejected by Spider-Man of all people. Okay, so quick detour. The symbiote bonded to the webhead first when it got to Earth. The symbiote made Spider-Man stronger, faster, and gave him that sweet black costume. But it also made the Spider more angry, more aggressive, and more willing to do things that the regular Spider-Man wouldn't. So Peter ditched the costume and told E.T. to kick rocks and phone home. Remember this, because this is going to be important later. The symbiote and Eddie's mutual pain is what brought them together, which leads to the second reason why evil Spider-Man is an ice infant. Venom is chasing a high. In real life, people who fall prey to drugs want the good feeling that comes from taking the stuff. They want that good feeling to escape the problems that they have. And Venom does the exact same thing. All the super strength and web-slinging action that Venom brings is a great distraction from Eddie's life of brokenness and rejection. Who cares if you don't have a job when you can steal all the money you'll ever need? Who cares if Daddy doesn't love you? You can beat up Spider-Man! The power trip that Venom gives to Brock makes him feel bigger than life. Invincible even. It is that invincible feeling that creates my last piece of evidence. Eddie keeps coming back. In the movies and comics, Big Ed tries many times to quit the symbiote, and on occasion he's even able to do so. For a little bit. But what happens is that the symbiote always finds his way back to Eddie, and Eddie always takes the symbiote back. And sadly, that's the struggle for a lot of people who try to quit drugs go on. They try and fail. Not because they don't want to, not because they don't want it bad enough, but because living a life without something you've told yourself you needed just to get by is incredibly difficult. Not impossible, but quitting a habit can be a lifelong battle. So we have an anti-hero who's hiding pain by chasing the high that life as Venom gives him, and it keeps him in a loop of using, trying to quit and then coming back. But maybe you're not convinced yet. That's fine, because you know who agrees with me? Spider-Man.
We are Venom.
So even though no one connected to Venom's creation as a character has ever come out and said, yeah, Venom's a metaphor for drugs, bro, other people see it that way, and one of them is in fact Spider-Man. That's right, the web slinger's with me on this. He also believes that slinging over to subscribe and unmasking that like button would help your friendly neighborhood guidance guy. Let's go over to the Spider-Man 2 game that came out not too long ago. Yeah, we got Miles Morales in it, and that's awesome. But we also got a certain gooey alien that also shows up. And this is where I hope you remember that mental note I told you to keep earlier, because it's gonna pay off right now. As you play Spider-Man 2, you are the New York Defender with the symbiote powers. He's stronger, able to throw guys around in ways old Spidey simply couldn't. But as the game story goes on, the toxic alien begins to poison Peter. The voice actor that played Peter Parker in SM2, Yuri Lowenthal, is on the record saying that his performance as Peter in the Black was based on, quote, behaviors of addiction. What are those behaviors of addiction? Well, you already know one of them, that super good feeling that comes when you're on the stuff. Spidey loved that increase in strength, speed, as well as all the crazy extra powers that the symbiote had. But it's the high that gets you hooked, wanting more and more, which is what happens to Peter in the game. He becomes reckless, takes risks that he otherwise wouldn't take because he's chasing that high, which then leads to the substance changing you as a person. When Peter puts on the black suit, Peter gets so grimdark, he's willing to finish off villains just to show how much stronger he is. And it's this exact pattern that people hooked on drugs experience. They get that hit of happiness to distract them from their problems. It feels so good that they want to relive that moment over and over again. But as time goes on, that feeling gets harder to come by, so they need to take more of it to get that same feeling. And the more they take, the more the person changes. They get angry more easily. They start to betray their own beliefs, and all they care about is getting their next fix. And also in the comics, we see readers come to that same conclusion, that the symbiote, and by extension Venom, symbolize what addiction looks like. And that's not even counting his kids. Yup, Venom's big, he's bad, and he's also a dad. Venom has 7 kids, each of them with their own unique abilities, but also the same struggles that Venom has. And now that we've looked at Venom's background and family tree, let's get personal with this. How does this all connect to you? The story of Venom is ultimately a cautionary tale, a warning against the dangers of substances. That though it can bring out the worst in people and turn them into monsters, people who become hooked often don't start that way. That drugs can bring you up, but they also have the power to bring you down even lower than you were before. And the process of giving it up could turn to an endless lifelong battle. The obvious takeaway is to stop before you start. Whether we're talking about alcohol, smoking, or vaping, and yes, vaping is bad for you too, these things can take over your life if you let them. Don't give them that chance. But like we said, people who fall to this stuff do so in order to cope with their lives. So what can we do instead? Let's find out. Welcome back to the Character Corner, and let's talk about what we could do instead of going to dangerous substances to avoid our problems. Doing so is a great example of good decision making. So instead of running to drugs that can get you hooked, try talking out your problems. Talk to a close friend or safe adult whom you trust to talk to. For some, that alone can be enough. For others, you may want to write it out. Sure, you could make a journal, but you can also write a poem, song, spoken word, whatever you need to express yourself. But perhaps the most important decision you can make to deal with life's lows is to not deal with it yourself. Many people who get hooked trick themselves into thinking that they're alone in their pain and struggle, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Don't bottle up your feelings. Don't think nobody cares. Make the choice to ask for help. Even if you don't think you'll get it the first time, don't stop until you get it. Though Venom never truly learned this lesson, it's not too late for you. You're not alone, other people care, and you have the power to bounce back.
Every day we deal with inside and outside thoughts. Outside thoughts are messages that we receive from friends, family, and social media. And inside thoughts are messages that begin and live in our own inner worlds. At some point, we've all dealt with annoying, pestering ideas that show up without warning and just won't leave us alone. These are called intrusive thoughts. And despite how common they are, we all want a way to banish them from our minds. But what if I told you that you can learn how to deal with intrusive thoughts through the Venom movies? Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today, we're diving into the world of Spider-Man's side characters to see how we can finally gain control over something that, like the Venom symbiote, seems to have a life of its own. Let's go! It's guidance time.
I am Venom, and you are mine.
All thoughts are not created equal. For this video, I'm gonna say that there are 3 types of thoughts: flyby thoughts, treasure thoughts, and bubblegum thoughts. Flyby thoughts are like planes. They'll fly over you, you think about it for a sec, and then it's gone. You know those random thoughts that just pop in your head and then you never think about them ever again? That's a flyby thought. Next up are what I call treasure thoughts. Treasure thoughts are ideas you have, but you bury them in order to bring them back up when you need them. Memories or ideas that you want to save for later are treasure thoughts. And lastly, bubblegum thoughts. These little buggers are thoughts that get into your head, but they're sticky and hard to get rid of. That's what intrusive thoughts are. Thoughts that can get stuck in your head and take a lot of time and effort to remove. And Eddie Brock understands the struggle. Venom bonded to him and stuck by him even when Eddie wanted nothing to do with the goopy alien. Now you may be wondering, where do intrusive thoughts even come from? Like every other thought that we have, they come from our own minds. And intrusive thoughts are random, but they can also be really dark, go against everything you are as a person, and frankly, may not even make sense sometimes. Now, our brains are amazing. They can store information in ways that computers only wish they could, and in a lot of ways are responsible for us being alive right now. Our minds create thousands of thoughts every single day, but not every thought is actually true. Because as it turns out, our bubblegum thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, most of the time are not based in reality. They may be thoughts about things that are not possible, not likely, or even not true. For example, when we have anxious thoughts about the worst thing that could possibly happen to us, they almost never happen. Or that thought to attack someone that was rude to you, most of us don't follow through on those thoughts because we know it wouldn't be the best choice for us to make. And Eddie has that same struggle with Venom. The symbiote will constantly tell Ed that he wants to do the wildest things, like biting people's heads off. And as it turns out, this is something Eddie doesn't want to do. But as the first movie goes on, Ed is able to understand that he doesn't have to do everything that Venom says, and that sometimes his little friend is just wilding out. And it's the same thing for us. We don't have to do everything our brains tell us to do, just like how not everything our brains tell us is 100% truth. And Eddie over time becomes able to control Venom and not just nom-nom on every person in sight. So how can we get to that point?
I don't like you.
Let me eat him.
You do not deserve nice things.
Throughout the Venom movies, we see Eddie Brock go from struggling to handle being the host of an utterly unhinged alien to by the end of it seeing that same unhinged alien as his best friend. Can we have that same relationship with our brains? Absolutely. But just like with any relationship, it's gonna take time and work. And the first step to controlling intrusive thoughts is to question your brain. Do you know what would have happened if Eddie just did whatever told him to do? He would have turned into Carnage. In Venom 2, Cletus Cassidy, the man that bonded with the Carnage symbiote, never actually said no to what Carnage wanted. And as a result, a lot of people got hurt, or worse. So whenever you get that random bubblegum thought, ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it real? Checking in with your brain to see if what it's saying is even logical is a huge step in getting rid of intrusive thoughts. Because if you can determine that your mind is wilding out, then you know you don't have to take it seriously when it's acting like that. Going back to the films, Eddie is able to shut down Venom when he wants to do something out of pocket, like eating some rando's head. This then leads to the next action: replace the thought. To those who struggle with bubblegum thoughts, just telling your brain to shut up or thinking that the thought will just go away often isn't enough. Shoot, I fall for this sometimes. I get rid of one annoying thought only for another one to take its place. So what we need to do is replace that thought with another one. And once you've switched out the idea, act on the replacement thought. And how that will look will depend on the situation. For example, if you feel like your friend is giving you the cold shoulder and ignoring you, your intrusive thought might be thinking that your friend hates you and wants nothing to do with you. First, ask yourself if that thought is real. Do you have any actual proof that your friend hates you? Did they say or do something to you? And don't go off of vibes or gut feelings, because guess where those gut feelings and vibes come from? The brain. And if you don't have any real proof, then replace that thought with, I'm going to talk to my friend and get to the truth. Then do that, and ask for help if you need it. Or say your thought is, I'm gonna fail this test / class. I mean, at this point in the year, probably not, but remember this for next year, okay? Ask yourself if the thought is real. Is this what's gonna happen for sure? These kinds of thoughts hit us most during or after a test, or in a class that we're not great at or we just don't like. When talking about a test, we don't know the result until we get it, so there's always a chance. If you get this thought before the test, replace that thought with, I will study for the test, and then go do the thing. Now, if it's during a test, replace that thought with, I will do my best, and then use the strats your teacher taught you. This will help you turn that bubblegum thought into a flyby thought. It's there, and then it's gone. And yes, Brock did this too. So to explain, the reason why Venom wants to go all Pac-Man on people's heads is because he needs brains for food, like a zombie. But instead of letting literal heads roll or Venom starving to death, Brock replaces the need for brains by letting Venom go after chickens around the city and then later on eating on bad guys who had it coming. And by telling your brain what it is and is not okay to think about, those intrusive thoughts will become less sticky. And when you keep following these steps as those thoughts come up, it will become easier to shut them down, replace them, and act on better thoughts. So let's say you do that. You question, replace, and act over and over again. What happens next?
We are Venom.
I'm gonna get right to it. Eddie didn't gain control over Venom in the first movie. By the end of the first film, he's just been able to tolerate this crazy alien who's squatting in his apartment. It wasn't until the end of the second adventure, after a dramatic breakup between the two, that they truly started to understand each other. But in The Last Dance, we see them working together and getting along. One scene, they're wrecking bad guys and saving lives. The next, they're hanging out and chilling. And as odd as it sounds, we can have that same relationship with our brains. For those of us who struggle with intrusive thoughts, sometimes we feel like we're at battle with our own minds. But just like how Eddie and Venom live in harmony with each other, we could also coexist with our brains. Because at the end of the day, our mind's goal is to help us survive. And part of that job is to analyze and forecast what dangers might hit us. But just like we discussed earlier, just because our brains are telling us something doesn't make it true. If we check if our thoughts are logical, and if they're not, replace that thought with a plan and then act on it, not only will our brains get the message that our fear is unfounded, the mind will start to rewire itself to eventually not even send that thought to you in the first place. And again, this isn't gonna happen overnight. You'll need to do this over and over again, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And you'll see those intrusive bubblegum thoughts disappear and be replaced with positive thoughts based in facts. While doing this, there will be good days and bad days, but if you keep trying, it will get better. You will get better. In each story of the Venom movies, we see the lethal protector get stronger, but also smarter and better able to take on the madness that life throws at them. And if that can happen to an alien-human hybrid fusion, I believe that you can go even further. Rise up, GG Nation, cause it's time for Guidance Guy Friday.
Your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. Last week, we talked sports, then Disney and anime before that. But today, let's talk Batman, the Guardian of Gotham, one of the biggest names in DC Comics, the original billionaire playboy philanthropist. Hey, no shade on you, Tony, but it's just facts, bro. Batman is a character that embodies resilience, then uses that determination to body his enemies. Except in these movies where he just straight up kills people? Nah, that's not how he rolls. Hashtag not my Batman. And this guy has made it out of some insane situations, being buried alive, fighting Superman, and even taking on the Hulk? Yeah, that's the thing that happened. But what if I told you that there's a story where the Bat was so broken that not even he thought he could recover? Stay tuned. Let's go. It's guidance time. So before we go deep into the Batverse, let's review resilience real quick. Remember that resilience is the ability to bounce back from hard times. And the 3 ways to be resilient is to block out the haters, be creative, and never give up. And as we go through this video, look for where you think the Cape Crusader used these 3 tips. Also, while you're here, smack that subscribe button and throw a batarang to like this video. And also, spoiler alert for The Dark Knight Rises, just in case you have it on your watch list on HBO Max. And yes, I know it's called Max, I just don't care. The name is dumb, and they shouldn't have changed it. In DKR, our man Bruce is not in a good place. He's still mourning the death of his childhood friend from the last movie, and he's taking it so hard that he's now out of shape and even giving up the whole Batman gig. But when a group of criminals start framing him for crimes he didn't commit, he puts on the cowl once again to take those punks down. But there's one problem. The mastermind behind these string of lies, Bane, is bigger and stronger than our washed hero. The Bat gives it his all, but he ultimately gets wrecked by Bane. And when I say wrecked, I mean that Bane breaks his back. Oh, you heard that crack right? That's just, Listen, I can't even watch those chiropractic videos.
Drop the head over.
Ugh, it's just too much for me. I felt that. B-Man then gets flown over to the Middle East and literally thrown into a pit that goes miles into the ground and is left to rot while Bane pretty much takes over Gotham. Now, this is one of the lowest points that Batman has ever been at. He's broken, both in body and spirit. His city's being taken over by someone who talks like this. I don't know why they chose that voice. It's just ridiculous. And he's stuck in a pit in the middle of the desert where everyone keeps telling him that pretty much no one gets out of there alive. It really doesn't get any worse than that. And yet, even in his lowest moment, the spirit of the Bat still lives in Bruce Wayne.
Torture. Yes. But not of your body. Of your soul.
So the world's greatest detective just got the world's biggest beatdown and has been left in the pit to watch as Bane tries to burn Gotham to the ground. So what does he do next? Well, he's Batman. So what do you think he does? He doesn't give up and he tries to get his back right. But the way he does it though? Okay, look, just to be sure we all understand, this doesn't work in real life. Doing this to someone else's broken back will definitely make it worse, okay? But movie logic aside, Bruce is able to stand and walk again, and then he spends the next 5 months getting physically ready to get back into action. He's doing the push-ups, the sit-ups, the whole thing. But B-Man isn't just doing this just to get back to Gotham, because there's something he needs to do first. Climb out of the pit! And even though he has all the skill and ability to do the job, his body isn't there yet. So he gets back into shape, gets his body and his mind ready for the climb. And as he finally gets ready to do it, all the inmates from the pit are cheering him on. They want to see someone finally get out of there. And when he begins that climb, and he climbs, you wonder if he's actually going to make it. But, true to the title, the Dark Knight rises from the depths of the pit. And where does he go from there? Back to Gotham, of course. He returns to a city on the verge of falling apart due to all the violence that Bane started. And oh yeah, there's a nuclear bomb in the city that's gonna go off. So Batman goes to work. He takes on the Masked Man, takes him down, stops the bomb, and is able to retire as Bruce Wayne, knowing that at long last, Gotham is safe. And this movie is insane. All the twists and turns that happen, and of course the action is always a blast. But in the fireworks show that is The Dark Knight Rises, let's not forget about the journey that Batman went on to bring said fireworks. If Mount Rushmore had superheroes instead of presidents, Batman would for sure be up on there. And perhaps the craziest thing about him is the simple fact that he has no powers.
What are your superpowers again? I'm rich.
No, bruh, that's not a power. Nice try, though. But even though he has no super strength or the ability to fly, the Cape Crusader does have one trait that's pretty much his super ability. And it's something that we can all use too. Resilience is a superpower. In a lot of ways, Bruce Wayne is a lot like us. He wasn't born on an alien planet, he doesn't have a magic ring, or can run so fast that he can go back in time. But then again, neither can us. But that's what makes him a boss. He's taken on everything from insane clowns, unstoppable monsters, and borderline gods, and he's not even walking into those battles with broken OP powers. Nah, he's got nothing but his wits, body, and will, and of course, his determination. We take it for granted, but Bruce didn't have to become a crime-fighting guy in a batsuit. He could have just used his money to make up for his missing parents, or given up on life and wallow in misery. But he didn't. He got creative in how he could carry on his parents' legacy. He blocked out the haters when people thought he was the bad guy. And even when facing Mr. Freeze, Bane, or a world ender like Darkseid, he never gave up. Batman made his choice, and we have the same decision to make. When difficulties come, are we going to give up and lay down? Or are we going to pick ourselves up and rise again? Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today is opening day for the long-awaited Joker 2. Listen, I'm not French, I ain't gonna get none of that right. The movie that looks into the connection between the clown prince of crime and his right-hand lady. But here's the thing, I haven't seen this film yet, and even if I did, well, it's, it's
Rated R.
Not that that's gonna stop some of you. So here's what we're gonna do. Let's look at the first couple of crime to answer the question. Can you save a bad relationship? We see toxic friendships all the time. And if we're brutally honest, you might be in one yourself. And in my work as a school counselor, I see it all the time. Friend A wants to quit friend B, but they just can't. They think the other person will change or that they could be the one to make them change. But is that true? Let's see if you should play the hero and save your toxic friendships. Let's go! It's guidance time!
It's a name that puts a smile on my face. It makes me feel there's someone here I can relate to. Someone who might like to hear my secrets.
So let's say you have what can be called a toxic relationship. Let's first define what that even is. A toxic friendship is a relationship in which one person mistreats the other. And this could look like a lot of different things. So we're going to look at the mad clown and his jester to see how many red flags we can spot, and then ask yourself if you see any of those problematic behaviors in your relationships. You ready? With Joker and Harley, their story starts at the rest stop for every Batman villain, Arkham Asylum, where the Joker is put in there for the millionth time for almost blowing up the city or whatever. While he's there, the mad clown meets Dr. Harleen Quinzel, a psychiatrist who's assigned to take on his case. That's right, before she was a clown, Harley Quinn was a doctor, son. As Quinzel works with the man who smiles, he goes into full tragic backstory mode. He tells her about his father who would smack him around relentlessly, and how hard little Joker tried to make his old man smile. A sad story to be true, but I'ma raise the first red flag here, cause the thing is, everything about that is a lie.
Why you always lying?
Whatever story Mr. J told his new therapist was nothing more than a story he made up, and you might encounter the same thing. It could be a so-called friend who tells stories that make you go,
Stop the cap.
or they make up rumors about you and spread them to others. Either way, if you know anyone like that, then stay with me. You might be asking, but why would Joker lie? What does he get out of it? Legit question, and the answer is this. The Joker created this Lifetime movie of an origin story in order to manipulate Harley to make her feel sorry for him. He wanted her to think, oh no, he's the victim actually, so Dr. Q could take his side and see things his way. Now we all know that the Joker is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But it's debated whether or not Harley is mentally ill too, or if she's just straight evil like that. Either way, the truth is that Harley was tricked, which is our second red flag. When someone is manipulating you, they might tell you their version of the story, but leave out anything that can make them look bad. Or they might tell you to not be friends with someone anymore, or they'll tell other people not to be friends with you. And what's the main goal of all this puppeteering? Control. Folk who run toxic friendships want to control everyone involved. They want things done their way, their friends to act the way they want them to act, and those who don't get punished. Which leads to the third red flag. One person does all the work. Harley and Joker ain't Lois and Superman, being all lovey-dovey and getting along and stuff. Nah, these two are a disaster. Harley does all the work in the relationship. She looks out for Mr. J, helps him with his goals, messed up as they are, cause trying to off Batman really shouldn't be on anybody's bucket list, and cares about him. But the green-haired goon, he don't care about her. He's all in it for himself. In fact, there are many times in their story where we see Harley Quinn go to jail for the Joker or help him get away while she rots away in Arkham while he does nothing to help her. You may be thinking, whoa, that's messed up. Who would put up with that? Well, let's keep it a buck. Some of you do. Yeah, it's not as extreme as going to jail for somebody, but it could look like your friend only wanting you to listen to their problems while you never get to share yours. Or it might be they expect you to compliment them all the time while they get to roast you to a crisp. And all of this ends in drama. You have friends and then you don't. You have a big blow up with this person every other week, only to make up and start all over again. Trust, I see this way too often in schools. And as we see with our chaos duo, this is not just a student problem. But before we move on, take a moment to squash that subscribe button and give a like to this video if you like where this is going. So let's say that you see these red flags with Joker and Harley, and you might be asking, why don't they just split up? Fair point. But let's put it another way. That friend that you know you have drama with, why don't you just split up with them?
And now all this gal wants is to settle down with her lovin' sweetheart.
You and the Joker?
Right, Rooney?
Looking just at HQ for a sec, we know that she knows better than to be around a psychotic supervillain who just wants to watch the world burn. I mean, she's a mental health doctor for crying out loud. But to her, the Joker is just a misunderstood comedian. A smooth criminal, if you will. But before we dunk on the doctor for being too dumb to see that evil clown is evil, watch out, cause someone could say the same thing about you. Why do you stay in a toxic mess of a friendship? Maybe you think they can change, or that you can be the one to change them. Or maybe you think that you can't do any better, and that this is the best you can do. Or worse, you somehow deserve this. And I'm gonna cut right here to tell you that if you believe that, you're believing a lie. No one deserves to be mistreated, lied to, told who to be friends with, or have rumors spread about. Absolutely not. And if you truly believe that, please reach out to someone who cares about you. But let's say that you think that ghosting this bad influence would be wrong, that maybe you could save them and make them better. Well, that's the question of the video, isn't it? So let's go there. Can you save your toxic friend? Should you even do it?
I've never seen you laugh before. Cut it out. You're giving me the creeps.
You little fool. The Joker doesn't love anything except himself.
With this, I'm gonna keep the answer as simple as possible.
No.
It is not your job, responsibility, or destiny to save a friendship that's only hurting you. Because here's the thing about relationships. Good friendships have give and take. Bad friendships have one person doing all the giving and the other doing all the taking. That's not okay. It's not healthy, and in some cases, it's not even safe. And I'll say this too. Most of the time, the person who's mistreating you doesn't want to change. Sure, they may say it when they get caught up in a lie and it's time to kill the beef, but you'll be right back in that same spot a few weeks from now if you keep it up. Let's look back at the first couple of crimes. We know that Joker will always treat Harley badly, no matter what she does or doesn't do. If she was real, you would tell Harley to bump Joker and move on. Now, I'm not saying that your problematic person is a homicidal maniac. Nah. What I am saying is that if your person wanted to change, you would have seen it by now. Not hear it on their 10th apology or hear them promise yet again that they'll change only for them to not. And though we don't know how Joker 2 ends, I can tell you that in the comics and other stories, Harley does eventually break up with the Joker and live a full life as her own person. She's still crazy, but she gets better. Harley Quinn learned that it's not her job to be the Joker's hero, but in the end she can only be her own hero in making her life better. Now for those of you who want to save someone else, let me ask you, are you willing to save yourself instead?
Did you know that? Now you know.
Welcome back to the Character Corner, where this month we're diving into decision making. Now, after seeing what a hot mess our clown duo are, and that sometimes we need to walk away from the chaos in our lives, looks like you may have a decision to make. Are you willing to stay with the drama and nonsense of those around you? Or are you willing to pull a Harley and break out and create a new path for yourself? And often the biggest issue that gets in the way of this decision is, am I being selfish for walking away from this person? And I'm gonna tell you right now, no, you're not. Being a self-centered jerk is never the right move. But doing something because it benefits you isn't always selfish. Because here's a quick way to tell if what you want to do is actually selfish. Is my action going to cause harm to those around me? When we need to ghost someone for our own good, sometimes we're tempted to think that the other person will be worse off without us. But the truth is, nah, they won't be. They'll just find somebody else to take advantage of, mistreat, and blame for all their problems. Taking care of your mental health isn't selfish, in the same way that taking a shower or brushing your teeth isn't. Doing those things only benefits you, but it's also good for you. Making the right choice isn't always about right and wrong. Sometimes it's about choosing between what will harm you and what will heal you. There's no movie series that's given a voice to our mentals in quite the same way that Inside Out has. And at the heart of its second film is a character that's gotten all the smoke for everything that went wrong in Riley's head: anxiety. On one hand, it makes sense. She pretty much made everything worse with every choice she made. But does that make her the bad guy though? Rise up, GG Nation, cause it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today I'm going to show that not only is anxiety not the big bad of Inside Out 2, but she actually can be useful to not just Riley, but to you. Let's go! It's guidance time!
Hello, everybody!
Let's be real here. Nobody likes anxiety, neither in the movie or in real life. We hate what it does to our mentals, how it feels in our body. Shoot, sometimes we even avoid things that activate it. But let's look at the actions that anxiety took in Inside Out 2, and let me show you how some of what she did was actually good. Let's take her first action in the movie. She just shows up out of nowhere and announces that HQ is her home now. Homegirl just pulls up unannounced and uninvited like the worst kind of house guest.
How rude.
But let's back it up for a sec. That's what the OG crew did. Go back to the first movie and you'll see that every single emotion shows up just like anxiety did. And if we're honest with ourselves, all our emotions just show up without warning. Sometimes we don't even know why we feel what we feel. And you know what? That's okay. Our emotions don't always make sense. Sometimes they're triggered by something in the past that we're not even thinking about in the moment. Other times we know exactly what activated that feeling center in our brain. You can't fault anxiety for doing what all the other feels do. And we gotta keep that same mindset when anxiety takes charge of the console. Sure, Joy gets offended by this newbie just showing up and doing work. But again, they all do that. If the occasion calls for them to do their thing, then they do it. Anxiety was just doing her job. But now is where my job as the president of the Anxiety Keeping Committee gets difficult. Cause how am I gonna defend anxiety messing around with Riley's sense of self by chucking it into the back of her mind? Well, two things. One, Joy made that machine in the first place. If her mind suppression device didn't exist, that wouldn't have happened and this movie would have been a lot shorter. So not completely on Agent Orange. But was her idea of ditching Riley's sense of self a good thing? Well, kind of. Stick with me here. Should you just delete your whole identity like a bad selfie? No. However, as we go through our life, our sense of self will need to change. Who we were as a baby isn't gonna cut it once we know how to talk and walk. So anxiety was onto something when she said that Riley needed to make a few changes as she got ready for high school. Again, not bulldozing the whole thing and starting from scratch, but a touch-up here and there was needed. But what about suppressing the main crew in the vault? Surely I can't defend that. Well, watch me cook on this one. Anxiety was right when she said that Riley needs more complex emotions now that she's older. As we go through life, a sign of maturity is being able to see things as more than just black and white, good or evil. Life is complex, and someone who realizes that and lives in that reality is better able to handle life than someone who doesn't. Now, locking her colleagues out was not the move. But again, anxiety was on the right track by accepting the challenges that Riley was living through and taking on the challenges that came with them. But let's get back to Miss A's good points, like how she spurred Riley to practice early in the morning before camp. That's objectively smart. Any sports ball greats will tell you that part of their greatness was a willingness to be the first person in the gym, and if needed, the last one to leave. We also see anxiety's determination and willingness to sacrifice for the greater good, and we can all use some of that. BT dubs, our anxiety can work like that too, but more on that later. So we see that anxiety is determined, takes initiative, and isn't afraid to take charge. She's also a chess player, seeing the possibilities of what could go wrong and plans ahead to make sure things work out for Riley. All in all, anxiety is not all bad, but it's here I gotta look at the other side of anxiety. I mean, how could I be here glazing her up when so much of mental health is based on reducing and eliminating anxiety? Well, let's go there.
You have to score, Riley, or this will all have been for nothing.
You don't need me to tell you that anxiety has a bad side. For all of us who stayed up at night worrying about the problem awaiting us in the morning, or the fear that we know that doesn't make sense but still keeps us paralyzed, we know that all too well. But even as we look at anxiety's mistakes, we still see the glimmer of good intention. For example, starting the brainstorm to figure out how to make the Firehawks. Coming up with ideas to improve your situation and avoid disaster. That's exactly what anxiety wanted to do all along. It's something we should do too. But here's where our orange friend went astray. She focused so much on the negatives that she forced Riley's imagination to come up with every single bad thing that could go wrong. There's actually a word for this. Rumination. Riley's mind was so wrapped up in every bad ending for her camp, regardless of how realistic it was, it kept her awake at night. But this is just a movie though. That doesn't happen in real life. Again, anxiety did this to try to anticipate what could go wrong, to be prepared for the worst. But just thinking about the worst thing that could happen without making a plan for it, or even wondering if that thing is even possible, will only make you miserable. And all this ruminating can make you self-conscious, or hyper-aware of your actions to the point of being unsure of yourself. You know what you don't want to have happen, but you don't know how to prevent it. So you second-guess yourself and make things more difficult. That's what happened to Riley when talking with the Firehawks. She knew she still loved Get Up and Glow, but because she wanted to be accepted by the high schoolers so bad, she went from admitting to listening to them to straight up trashing them 2 minutes later. Anxiety in her attempt to give Riley what she wanted caused Riley to lose herself with endless negative thoughts and uncertainty about her own identity. And that led to Riley making sacrifices that she shouldn't have made. Anxiety motivating Riley to do those early morning workouts was a sacrifice that was making her better. But anxiety also motivated Riley to sacrifice her relationship with her friends and betray her values by sneaking into the coach's office. And those sacrifices are undefendable. And neither was the self-talk that anxiety built into Riley. Self-talk is the inner conversation that we have with ourselves about ourselves. And don't cap on me now. We all do it. Self-talk can be positive or negative, But listen for the self-talk that anxiety was giving Riley throughout camp and tell me you think this is helpful. If I'm good at hockey, I'll have friends. If I make the Firehawks, I won't be alone. On the surface, this all sounds motivational. As long as it goes your way, Riley fully bought into thinking that if she didn't make the Firehawks, she'd be alone and friendless going into high school, which wasn't true, seeing how Val was willing to be her friend from day one. And when all that negative self-talk was the only things dominating Riley's mind, it became the core of a toxic sense of self, the part of herself that was saying that she wasn't good enough. That's why she felt like she had to work so hard, play so hard, and completely change herself, because Riley now believed that she didn't have what it took. She had to earn approval, validation, the feeling of being worthy, because she felt worthless without it, which was a lie for Riley, and it's a lie for you. No one ever needs to earn respect, acceptance, or love. And if you find yourself doing that, then stick with me, because we can fix that. And it's with this negative sense of self that we see Riley become someone we don't even recognize anymore in the scrimmage game. She played with energy, yes, but also with desperation and selfish play. And people with this kind of dark sense of self, they live selfishly and with desperation. They think they need to look out for number one because no one's gonna care about them unless they're worthy, unless they're good enough. They treat everything like their self-worth depends on it because in their mind, it does. People who live like that go by many names. Perfectionist, obsessed, narcissist. That's no way to live. Because in the end, when you put all this pressure on yourself, when you don't believe you're worth love and success by yourself, it can lead to a breakdown, or in Riley's case, a panic attack. And this is why we hate anxiety, because of all the problems that come when we let anxiety's dark side rule us, self-doubt, and negative thoughts that won't go away and cause us to not like ourselves. And believe me when I say that no one should live like this. No one deserves to live like this. And even with all of this, this still doesn't make anxiety the villain, because we can use anxiety for our good. How? Stick with me.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to protect her.
So if anxiety isn't the big bad of Inside Out 2, then what is she? Let me ask you something. Say you have someone who's new at something, a job, game, whatever, and they're just trash. What do you call them? You'd call them a newbie, a rookie, a noob. That's what anxiety is at her core. Throughout the entire film, she says that everything that she did was to help Riley and help her get what she wanted. The problem with anxiety, though, was she often went too far. And because we too tend to let anxiety go too far in us, we tend to blame anxiety instead of using it to help us. Because just like with sadness in the first movie, where we learned that being sad has a purpose, so does anxiety. Throughout the movie, anxiety had a goal, saw potential dangers to that goal, and set out to get rid of said dangers. That's how it works in our life. Anxiety is like a weather forecast. It can tell you what might happen. It could be right or it could be wrong. Our job is to be prepared based on that forecast. And we could use a few tips to keep anxiety from going haywire in our own lives. 1. Question your thoughts. If your anxiety causes you to think about a million things that could go wrong and ruminate, ask yourself if what you're thinking can even happen. If it can't, then dump that thought and don't dwell on it. But if your worst case scenario is actually possible, then move on to the next step. Make a plan. If you have a test that's stressing you out, make a plan to study. Got a big game coming up? Give it your all in practice. Eat right and get rest. It all comes down to focusing on what you can control. Don't ignore your anxiety. It's not your enemy. Just be careful to not let it run you. It's anxiety's job to make the forecast, but they're guesses, not a prophecy. And lastly, work to embrace all parts of yourself. Not just the parts you like, not just the aspects that are ready for the socials, but the anxious, jealous, angry, and fearful parts as well. Because as Riley learned by the end, her emotions don't control her. She does. And we have to make the same choice. And the best way to do that is to learn from our bad memories. Don't stuff them or force yourself past them. Talk it out, journal out your thoughts, make sure you get them out so they can become part of your sense of self instead of rotting in the back of your mind. Live your life. Strive for excellence. Just remember that you are more than what you do. Be sure to love yourself, every messy, beautiful piece of you. And once you do that, you quickly realize that you were always good enough.
Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And for our last look into resiliency, we're taking a trip down under to Bluey Land, the show that can truly, unironically say that it's fun for the whole family. Your little bro loves it, you love it, and even your moody older sister and your parents,
they secretly love Bluey. Shoot, I've even seen college students wear Bluey merch, bro. But let's keep it a buck. Behind this feel-good show about talking animals is a main character who, let's be real, can be a little sus. There are so many examples of Little Blue making family members cry and destroying friendships on this show. I'm sorry, are we talking about one of the most beloved animated characters of this generation? Or Mario Party? Is it possible that we've been watching a supervillain origin story? Is Australia's favorite pup actually a bad dog? It's time we got some answers. But make sure to fetch that subscribe button and throw a bone to that like button first. Because engagement. Let's go. It's guidance time.
This episode of Bluey is called Bad Food.
So for this part of the video, you can call me Kendrick, because I'm about to go full hater mode.
I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk.
Because when we look at the world's most popular Blue healer, there's a lot that she's hiding behind that smile. Now, because exposing everyone's favorite best dog can be a shock to the system, let's ease into it with this one. Blue is straight up stubborn. In a lot of adventures of this little pup, we see Miss Healer's desire to have things done her way. Like in the episode Spy Game, where she demands everyone play the game the way she designed it, which leaves her little sister Bingo so over it that she quits the game in protest. Because that's what we want in our animated main characters, the ability to turn their very loved ones against them. And don't think this is the last time Bingo ends up being Bluey's victim. We'll come back to this. Or how about in Copycat, when Bluey dedicates her life to copying every single move her dad makes? Because that's totally the normal, not annoying thing to do to another human, dog, person thing.
Okay, stop copying me. Stop copying me.
Now, we've all been there before. That person who's gone out of their way to be the worst. They don't care about how their actions make you feel or how it's driving you insane. They're just doing it because they can. And that's who Bluey is. We gotta admit it, people. Because it's not just her my way or the highway mentality. Sorry to break it to you all, but Bluey's also pretty selfish. Need examples? It's alright. Denial is hard to get past. How about in Wagon Ride, when she wakes up her parents on their day off, forcing them to go along with whatever she wants to do that day? That alone gets her the side eye for me as a parent, but it doesn't end there. Well, on their morning stroll, Little Blue can't even let her dad talk to his friends. If you're on Bluey time, you ain't got time for nothing else. And nobody suffers the wrath of Bluey more than her little sister Bingo. Told you we'd get back to that. Let's go to Magic Xylophone, the very first episode. This girl is so controlling that she refuses to give Bingo a turn at the godlike power to freeze anyone on demand. Need more proof?
But wait! There's more!
How about Duck Cake? Bluey straight up refuses to clean up the whole living room, just her part of it. Sure, that sounds fair, right? Until you remember it's Bingo's birthday. It's your little sister's birthday, and you can't even throw her a solid and clean up after her just this one time? But hey, this is just who she is. So now that we know the truth about Bluey, what's our next step? We gotta diagnose her, call her Discount Peppa Pig, and call it a day? Nah, not quite yet. Let's make sure we get the whole picture first.
Oh, I guess Santa doesn't give presents to kids who bite people.
Bluey!
Now that we've seen just how much of a jerk Bluey is,
You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk.
let's be fair and see if Bluey has any redeeming qualities. I mean, we can't just slap on the evil label without looking at the issue from all angles. Alright, let's take a look here. Okay, we might have something here. Let's go back to Duck Cake. So remember how Bluey's dad Bandit was trying so hard to make that cake for Bingo? Remember when he tried to hold the head and body in place and then this happens?
Oh, Duck Cake!
So how does Bluey respond to this? Does she kick him when he's down, guilt trip him for his bumbling? No, actually. She talks to her dad, cheers him up, and actually gives him some useful advice on how to save the cake and to transform it into something you'd see on Nailed It?
Nailed it.
So in this situation, we see that our girl can actually be considerate and caring, being willing to go out of her way to help others and make them feel better. Alright, fine, I guess. She had one good day. But are there any other examples we could take from? Okay, I found something. In the episode Mum School, Bluey is practicing her mom skills, which I gotta say, girl, too soon. But she finds out that one of her children, Greenie, just wants to do his own thing and isn't doing what he's supposed to do. Ooh, what's that? Are we getting some irony here? But even with Greenie being on one all day, Bluey isn't giving up on her balloon baby. She even takes notes from old Bandit to figure out how to work with Green. Okay, so right there we see that Bluey can in fact be determined and not give up easy while also being creative in solving her problems. But as it turns out, I'm actually not done yet. What about in Shadowlands? Bluey and the gang are playing a game where you have to move in the shadows and avoid lighted areas. But Coco has this bad habit of wanting to change the rules when the game gets too difficult. Instead of putting up with the foolishness, Bluey tells Coco that they're not making changes to the rules, and sticks to that even when Coco tries multiple times to change the rules. So there's that determination again. And it's actually because of that determination that Coco is able to stay in the game with the rules intact while also picking up Bluey's creativity. Hold up, so she's creative, doesn't give up, and we already know she doesn't care what haters think. Ooh. Bluey is actually a great example of resiliency, which I'm sure you know all about by now. Okay, so I gotta be honest here, when it comes to Bluey, I feel like Thanos.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
Now that I see the full picture of Bluey, I'm seeing an element of her that can actually work for all of us.
Thanks, Bluey.
So we've seen the good and the bad for Bluey, and I'm forced to come to the conclusion that no, Bluey's not a bad dog. She's got her positive sides and her negatives. And guess what? So do we. In fact, do you know how old Bluey is? You think she's, what, 3, 5? Nah, she's 6 years old. She's pretty much in first grade. And I see this from first graders all the time. Yeah, they're gonna have their selfish moments or be petty or want to do things their way. BG dubs, everyone struggles with that too. But we've also seen that she can be more than that. And for us humans, it's not all that different. Being resilient is part of being human. If you were absolutely 100% perfect in everything you did, you wouldn't need resilience. Resilience is for those who make mistakes, don't always do the right thing, for people who need to say they're sorry sometimes. It's for all of us. In Bluey's case, she learns how to get past her mistakes and moments when she was less than her best, while showing us how to do the same. Maybe that's why Bluey is so popular. For a puppy, she has so much about her that feels so human.
Even though the show has only been around for 7 years, for many Bluey is already on the Mount Rushmore of children's TV, right up there with goats like Arthur, Blue's Clues, and Sesame Street. And part of his rise is Bluey's unashamed devotion to fun. But is there any way to get that kind of adventure, spontaneity, and enrichment for ourselves? Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today, let's see if Bluey's recess all day attitude is something we can actually do ourselves, or if it's just another case of TV magic. Let's go! It's guidance time!
I'll do it.
When we look at the Healer family, we see a lot of great qualities. Their love for each other, their unity, and the fact that they're able to deal with arguments and disagreements without ending relationships. It's the kind of thing that everyone wants in their life. But there's an element to their dynamic that allows them to activate game time at will: spontaneity. Look, we all have schedules to keep, whether it's homework, recitals, tournaments, meets, practice, whatever. And on one hand, that's a good thing. As annoying as it can be to have to follow the clock, having a plan for your time ensures that you make the most of it. But I'm gonna tell you, there's a downside to that too. There is such a thing as being overscheduled, where you have too much going on and you're constantly doing something. Sure, it might feel good to be busy and not be wasting time, but science is showing us that this is not the best way to live. It could lead to anxiety, crashing out, and ultimately not meeting the goals that you want to attain in the first place. But Bluey and crew don't do that. I mean, look at dance mode. Imagine being on the town with the fam, knowing that at any moment you can be asked to bust out your best dance moves at a moment's notice. And it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you're doing it. If dance mode is summoned,
you must comply.
Or how about in the episode Bus, where Bandit is playing Uber to a lady and a couple grannies. But by the end of the game, the brakes of the bus have been eaten off, Mom has to take over to save everybody, and total chaos ensues. And you see it how it works for Australia's favorite pups. They're happy, have a strong family bond, and it makes them fun to be around. And that tracks in real life. Research shows that even a touch of random lowers stress and makes you happier. Now, you gotta be careful about how and when you do this. Don't take this as an excuse to be all random for the lulz and then say that Guidance Guy said it was okay. Guidance Guy ain't saying that. I'm saying to do something small. A random act of kindness definitely counts as spontaneous, or just choosing to do one thing in your life differently, like brushing your teeth on the hand that you never use. Sounds silly, sure, but Bluey fans know that silly is just one of the ingredients that makes this show special.
Bye.
Get us out of here!
So be spontaneous, take a chance and do something different every once in a while. Sounds all well and good, but what happens when things go sideways? What do you do when life just doesn't want to cooperate? And when we look closer into the world of Bluey, we see it happens to them too. So many times, either during playtime or just in their regular day, be it Bluey, Bingo, Bandit, or Chili, they have to deal with lifing. So how do they handle it? Let's head over to the episode Helicopter where this exact thing goes down. Bluey, Bingo, and Chili have a way that their day is supposed to go, only for things to change. Bluey handles it well enough, but she's not happy about it either. Making the most of it, Bluey plays helicopter with her friends, escorting her crew from one place to the other with increasingly insane situations. But when Bluey's pals try to put their own voice into the game to spice things up, Bluey's at first not willing to go along with changes made to her game. But as she gives up control over how the game is supposed to go, what she discovers is that the game becomes more fun when she's willing to go with the flow. And that's what being flexible looks like. Cause let's be real, except for the most chill and unbothered among us, who doesn't want things to go their way 100% of the time? Go ahead, admit it. There's no shame in it. It's a perfectly human thing to want, having control over our space, our situation, and our lives. But the harsh truth is that life doesn't always cooperate with our plans for total domination. And when those times come, and they always do, we need to be flexible. And being flexible depends on the situation. It could look like finding another way to solve a problem you have. Or it could look like taking a break or putting the issue down to go do something else. Or with Bluey, it could look like taking advice from others, not being married to your ideas. Now, this isn't easy, especially for the control freaks out there. And if you watch Bluey, you know that Bluey likes having things done a certain way. But even Australia's favorite dog realizes that we can't always get what we want, and that's okay. And sometimes things work better when we don't. Just remember to have a cool head. You can't be flexible when you're raging out at how things aren't going according to plan. Take a deep breath, count to 10, walk away from the situation. Doing that will help get you into the mood to find another way. Because you can be spontaneous all you want, but when your spontaneity needs a plan B, Bluey and crew have figured out that sometimes going with the flow is the best thing you can do. Have you ever wondered if the episodes of Bluey happen in order? Like if Magic Xylophone was truly the first game that B&B played together, and that everything from Hospital to Tickle Crabs to the minisodes all fit with no time skips or going back? Even though that specific topic is a question for another day, I want to present the possible beginning of the Healer family game culture and the last secret of their family bliss. Where does it start? Season 1, Episode 12, Bob Bilby. Bingo and her classmates have Bob Bilby, a puppet that gets to spend each weekend with a different classmate, where the student takes pictures of their weekend with a hand puppet to go into their album. Think of it like a Flat Stanley project, and if you don't know who Flat Stanley is, go find a Flat Stanley book and educate yourself.
Educate yourself!
But when BB goes to Bingo's house and the album starts taking shape, what the healers see is a bunch of pics of the fam on their phones, watching TV, just chilling in front of screens. Not the most interesting way to spend a weekend. This bothers Bingo so much that the family decides to ditch the devices, get outside, and enjoy each other's company. And it's then when we start to see the Healer family that we're used to, making up games, being silly, and living life to the max. I believe this is the true first episode of Bluey, and the last key to living the Bluey life, putting down the devices and engaging with what's around us. Of course, this isn't an anti-tech talk, especially since all of you are watching this on some kind of screen. Come on now. But we gotta have balance about this. It's not like after Bob Bilby, we never see Bingo and Bluey on a screen ever again. They have moments watching TV or on a tablet, but their greatest moments happen when they're goofing around with Old Man Bandit or learning life lessons with their neighborhood friends. And it's the same way with us. As addicting as being on the socials or on our games are, and remember, the companies who make these things design them that way on purpose. The real joy in life, the real adventure is what games we make up for ourselves, the new friends we make, and the problems we solve. So real quick, let's put this all together. To get the life that Bluey has, we gotta go off script every once in a while and just do something just because. Also be flexible and go with the flow when things don't go as planned to see the opportunities that can come from it. And lastly, slow down on the screen time and get your IRL game up. Even though not every part of Bluey's world is realistic, as it turns out, the aspect of her world that we love the most is actually the easiest to attain. Gen Z has a lot of challenges facing them. finding the balance between mastering the internet and falling into brain rot, learning that the world that you live in might be melting away as we speak, and the overall uncertainty of this chaos-driven hot mess of a society. But perhaps the biggest issue that hits this generation the most is day-to-day loneliness. The situation is so bad that some call it a pandemic. But fear not, there's a fearless hero, nay, a goddess that can show the way to beating isolation and opening up to the world, who's also a Disney princess?
When you wish upon a star.
Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. No joke, Moana 2 is a case study in how to beat loneliness, connect with others, and even unlocking a new level of yourself.
Would you like to find out?
Let's go! It's guidance time!
Little sis!
I want to start us out by tackling the biggest obstacles that stand in our way to beating loneliness. And trust, what I'm not going to do is waste your time with cliches telling you to go touch grass, bro, or saying that just being yourself is enough to solve all your problems. If it were that easy, you wouldn't be watching this. Instead, I'm going to give you practical tips on how to overcome isolation while showing how Moana did it. The first tip sounds random, but it will make sense later. Know who you are. Take out a piece of paper and write down as many words that you can use to describe you. The only rule is that you can't use words that are negative or focus on what you aren't or can't do. And I want to focus on the positive because many times, the thing that keeps us stuck and unwilling to venture out are negative thoughts. And when we let those thoughts live rent-free in our heads, we start to believe them, and it holds us in a loop of wanting to do more, to be more, but letting our own minds sabotage us into submission and then getting down on ourselves for being in our situation, and on it goes. But when we focus on the good that we can put into the world, it gives us the confidence we need to accomplish our goals, be it making friends or trying something new. When we have a positive connection with ourselves, it's easier to have a positive connection with others. And that's exactly what Moana does. Yeah, she's the chief's daughter and she's one of the most powerful people in Motunui, but she's not who she is just because of that. She's also adventurous, daring, willing to take risks and shake things up, and she has the confidence to take said risks as well as the determination to get back up even when her confidence fails her and things go sideways. And it's her infectious confidence that allows her to make friends at home and recruit a crew to reconnect the other island. And when she has moments where she does lose sight of her identity, she has someone there to help her remember who she is. That list will be there to remind you if you don't have someone there to give you an emotional pep talk. Keep this list nearby or somewhere where you always go. Make copies if you need to, because it's only after you've done that you can move on to the next step. Connect to your passions. On that same piece of paper that has all your good qualities, jot down another list of activities you enjoy. And don't get judgy on yourself. If you love gaming, throw it on there. If your favorite thing is some obscure sport that almost no one knows or cares about, write it down. Knowing what you love also helps you understand yourself, which in turn helps you understand others. For example, if you know why you love a particular show or anime, then it's super easy to have a conversation with someone who's also a fan. No need to overthink or second guess if the other person even cares about what you're talking about, because you can feel the connection being built as you speak. And going back to the princess of Motunui, her whole character arc is built on her passion for the sea. Take that away from her, and not only do these movies not happen, she and her people would have been wiped out by Taka in the first film. And though for us our hobbies aren't a matter of life and death, at least I hope they're not, they can also be the key to making new friends, learning a new skill, or discovering something new about yourself. And when we have an understanding of ourselves, we're able to clear some of the biggest hurdles when it comes to loneliness, self-esteem, fear, and anxiety. If we don't think highly of ourselves, we're tempted to think that we're not worthy of the things that we want, and that low self-esteem then morphs into anxiety and fear that you'll never change and your situation will never change. But when we know who we are and what we love, we can see ourselves in the proper light. And when we love ourselves, we won't live in fear of being alone, because what we have to offer and who we are is more than enough. But let's be honest, these are not the biggest reasons why loneliness is such a big problem. Because what are you supposed to do when you come up against the very thing that can cause isolation and loneliness? What do you do with rejection?
I am unclear as to what you are doing.
So you've planned it out. You know what you're gonna do, what you're gonna say, and you're ready to put yourself out there and meet some people. You're out and about, be it a party, event, whatever. And after looking for the right person, you find them and strike up a convo. But after you get in a few words, you realize the other person is a brick wall. They give you one-word answers and their body language just screams, we done here? That's the one thing that keeps most of us from defeating loneliness in our own lives: rejection. Even though it can look different depending on the situation, at the end of the day, rejection at its core is no with extra steps. It can sound like, I don't want to be your friend, I don't want to date you, or even, I don't want to continue this conversation. And though most people want no parts of being rejected, studies show that Gen Z is especially sensitive to it, with one study saying that as much as 95% of Zoomers fear it. They also say that being shut down is a major factor in seeking out relationships, being dating, or just looking for a normal friend. So with this massive fear of losing out on the one thing you're trying to get, how do you get past it? And I'm going to be brutally honest here. The first step in beating your fear of rejection is accepting that it's gonna happen. This part is not easy, because rejection hurts. It can cause us to feel that's all that's gonna happen to us when we try to reach out. In response, we stop trying. But what ends up happening is that we let our fear own us, and then we hate ourselves for letting that fear own us. No matter what anybody says or how they present, everyone has been rejected. No matter their status, the size of their bank account, or how much riz they got, everyone has felt it. The thing that we're never told about rejection is that we have to go through it in order to find connection. Just like how most of us scraped our knees when learning how to ride a bike without training wheels, or how we're generally trash at something new when we try it the first time, rejection is simply scrapes on our journey to more. And when we look at Moana, she had her fair share of rejection too. When she went on her mission to unite the islands and look for a crew, pretty much everyone shut her down and came up with excuses as to why they couldn't join her on the high seas. Shoot, you can even go back to the first movie, where her own father rejected her desire to be out in the open ocean in the first place. We will get rejected at some point, but when overcoming loneliness is never about perfection or getting it right, whatever that looks like for you. Instead, focus on the attempt. You tried talking to someone, but it bombed and got awkward? Give yourself grace and remind yourself that you made a move in the first place. The other person seemed to want to talk to a rock more than you? Well, unless that person was just having an off moment, you shouldn't want to befriend someone who's going to treat you like that the first chance they get. So tell yourself that you just saved yourself a whole bunch of time. Just focus on whether or not you did the thing, not on whether or not you found your BFF. And after you've dusted yourself off from the sting of rejection, get up and try again. Even though Moana was rejected in both movies, it doesn't really feel like it. Ever wonder why? It's because she rebounded from the L so quickly that she was off to the next thing already. In Moana 2, just about every person she wanted to bring out to her mission said no the first time she asked them. That's rejection, plain and simple. But she didn't pack it up and quit. She kept going. Whether it was asking another person or convincing that same person who shut it down earlier, we don't dwell on her rejections because she doesn't. This goes back to focusing on doing the thing rather than getting a specific result. If you focus on whether or not you tried, something you can control, as opposed to whether or not someone reacted to you in a certain way, a factor you can't control, you get to determine the ending, not the other person. And when making that first move and trying, the best thing you can do is to try to make others feel welcome. Now, when I say that, I don't mean be a doormat or agree to everything someone says regardless of your own opinion. I'm talking about being relaxed, actively listening to the other person, and being invested in what they're saying. And even if you just froze up at the word relax, thinking, how can I relax if I kind of don't even want to do this? If that's you, then do this. Smile. Seriously, when you smile, your brain receives chemicals that allows your body to relax, calming you down, which reduces whatever stress and anxiety you might feel. And smiling changes your mood, making you feel better and more confident. And of course, being a decent human being who's not a jerk is gonna go a long way too. And guess what? Moana does all that. Whenever she talks to someone, she's beaming with a smile, full of confidence that would make anyone feel good. She isn't fake or rude. She listens to those around her and engages with them, even when she disagrees with them. One of the great poets of our time, Maya Angelou, once said, "People will forget what you said or what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel." If you feel good about yourself, it will show in how you connect with others. And if you make others feel good while still being your authentic self, then you will overcome loneliness. Because the truth is, we're tempted to think that we're the only ones fighting this battle against isolation. But that's not true. In fact, I'll take it a step further. You may think that you're alone, but you are not alone. When you peel back the layers of Moana 2, we see a quest of reunion. Moana is setting out to unite the other islands, as they were back in the ancient times. But the storm god Nalo keeps the other islands from reaching out to each other by sinking the central island, Natufutu. And when we look at our world, you can see a similar trend. Billions of people live on the earth today, the most amount of people living here in the history of humanity, but we feel so far away from each other. And there have been many theories as to what's causing it. The ever-changing times creating a backlash, the internet, and of course, every boomer's favorite punching bag, social media. But regardless of the cause, we see the end result. Just like how Natufutu was separated from the other islands, we are separated from each other. It can be physical because we don't interact unless we have to. Or it's digital because no matter how many chat rooms or echo chambers we enter, we know it's not 100% real. Or it can be mental after we've convinced ourselves that we can never beat this feeling of being forever alone. But as we've discussed, these are all lies. When we're willing to take a chance, to challenge ourselves and keep trying when we stumble, we will make progress. And when we do that over and over time we will see ourselves become someone we never thought we could be. It may look like being able to talk to new people without thinking about everything that could go wrong. Or it could look like having an eye for those who look like they need someone to talk to. Even if it's just being able to be around people without being gripped with anxiety, that's still growth, which is always the goal in the end. I don't know what your journey looks like or how far along you are in it, but I do want to let you know that if you haven't started, it's never too late. Make that list of your best qualities. Look for places where you can do your favorite thing. And remember, doing it perfect is not the point. The effort is. Learn from your mistakes and don't stop trying. As a result of her efforts and determination, Moana was able to reunite her people and become more than she could ever have imagined. Now the question is, who are you going to unite with? And are you ready to become more than you ever imagined?
Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And can I be real with you right now? Sometimes it feels good to be bad. And if there's any group that embodies the idea of, come on, be evil, it's fun, it's Disney villains with diabolical rogues like Scar, Ursula, and Cruella de Vil. They have the ability to make you fear them, hate them, but at the same time, you secretly like them. But I got a bone to pick with one of these legends, someone who shows up in all the marketing for this wretched hive of scum and villainy, the mistress of all evil herself, Maleficent. And I gotta say, nah, she ain't it, fam. Miss Mal is nothing more than an overrated petty excuse for a bad guy. Yeah, I said it, and I'ma prove it too. You ready for your 4 reasons Maleficent stands? Cause it's guidance time. Listen, I never got the hype for Miss Dragon Fairy here. Yeah, the House of Mouse has given her GOAT status as a baddie. Sure, her Animorph transform into a dragon thing is legit cool. And if you don't know what an Animorph is, ask your millennial teacher or go to the media center and educate yourself.
Educate yourself!
And even outside of Disney and games like Kingdom Hearts, she's set up as the gold standard of skullduggery. But why though? Let's check out her resume to see if her actions really warrant the rep. And spoilers for Sleeping Beauty, I guess. Listen, even if you didn't see this film, you know what happens. It's not even an A-tier Disney movie. Sorry, SP fans, but if the main character of her own story is taking a nap for a third of it, then I'ma stick to my Lion King, thank you very much. Let's start with the Horned One's first appearance in Sleeping Beauty, at the event that kicks off the whole movie. Homegirl shows up at a party celebrating the new princess, clearly isn't wanted by anyone in attendance, goes on about how much she mustn't have gotten her invite, only to be told to her face that she wasn't invited at all. Sure, she's all sarcastic about it, but come on now, you can't call yourself the mistress of all evil and then get all passive-aggressively sassy when people don't want you around them. BT dubs, some of you should be taking notes. Don't act like you're the baddest on the streets and then get all sad when you ain't got no friends. And there's reason 1, she doesn't have the greatest self-awareness. She can't own up to the fact that there are consequences for being the bad guy. But then she exposes herself even further by what she does next, so she's all butthurt about being ghosted to this shindig. Her response? She curses Princess Aurora, not to die a horrible death. She doesn't just end her right there and then, but she gives her the most convoluted death of all time. Death by spinning wheel? On her 16th birthday? And this is your mistress of malevolence? Your duchess of destruction?
Miss me with that. If she was truly evil, she would have ended baby girl right there and then, and if she wanted to prolong the suffering, she'd put a curse on the king and queen to make sure they kick the bucket in a couple weeks so she could take the throne and become the true empress of evil. Now, I don't know what this says about me coming up with this dastardly scheme, but it is what it is. And with that, we got reasons 2 and 3. Maleficent is not only petty for getting her fifis hurt, she really doesn't think things through. She didn't think that the Powerpuff Fairies would try to mess up her plan, or that giving Aurora's parents 16 years to thwart her operation is about, 16 years too many? Let's be real, GG Nation. Maleficent's reputation as an S-tier baddie is mostly based on vibes. Sure, she's got the look, the chilling voice, and the fact that her pet bird is named after the literal devil? She's coasting harder than a gifted kid on a standardized test. But beneath all the magic and the dragon form, all I see is a petty, vengeful, and kinda impulsive chick who's mean pretty much for the fun of it. And I haven't even gotten to reason 4 yet. It's time we face the truth about Miss Mal. She ain't no villain. She's just a bully.
You poor simple fools, thinking you could defeat me, the mistress of all evil.
Alright, I had my fun. Time for me to stop downing the haterade and put on my counselor hat. And while I do, go ahead and put a spell on that subscribe button and put that like button to sleep. But for me, when I see someone who is willing to cause pain to others, the first question I have for them is, who hurt you? There's a saying that's become popular these days that goes, hurt people hurt people. In other words, the only kind of person who would willingly cause distress to others is someone who is already distressed and in pain. And it's here where we need to take another look at Maleficent. Now, the OG story of Sleeping Beauty doesn't give Mal any sort of backstory. She just shows up, says,
I'm the bad guy. Duh.
And then spends the rest of the movie being said bad guy. But if we look at the 2014 Sleeping Beauty remake named after the so-called Mistress of All Evil, we start to get some answers as to how she turned out the way she did. And the truth is, Maleficent wasn't born evil. She was a strong, kind, and compassionate fairy, with giant bald eagle wings to boot. But
Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
the fairies and other magical creatures were at war with the humans, and the king declares that anyone who ends Maleficent can marry his daughter, effectively becoming prince. A young man named Stefan takes on the challenge, finds Maleficent, puts on the Riz, and then puts her to sleep with a magic potion, and then cuts her wings off because he couldn't bring himself to fully commit to the assassin bit. Now, here's the truth bomb. Stefan and Mal were best friends growing up. And Stefan, he eventually grows up to become king and Aurora's father. So we have someone who's on one hand a petty bully, but also someone who was betrayed by a close friend and stripped of her ability to fly, all because of that same friend's thirst for power. Kinda changes the equation, doesn't it? Mal is no longer just evil for evil's sake, but a deeply hurt and traumatized person lashing out at the very people who ruined her life. And that's reason 4. Mal isn't really evil as much as she just has emotional damage.
Emotional damage!
Now, I will say this. Her trauma does not excuse her actions. Aurora had nothing to do with Maleficent's beef with King Stefan, and if anything, she may have used Aurora as an excuse to mess with her ex-BFF. She didn't have to become evil, but we now see why she chose that path. And actually, this all comes back around to bullying when you think about it.
Thou sword of truth fly swift and sure, that evil die and good endure.
When you take away the cool powers and the dark aura that Maleficent carries around, all you have left is a broken person who's taking her own pain out on everybody else. And in my work, no matter what school I'm at, I see the same thing. Bullies who make other people's lives miserable are themselves miserable and are just trying to spread it around. And I want that to be our first takeaway. Bullies are broken people. They aren't evil supervillains bent on world domination. They're just hurt people who hurt people. Again, this doesn't make their actions okay in the slightest. I say this to make my second point. Bullies are nothing without fear. Maleficent seems so unstoppable, so invincible because the people around her feared her. And that's everyone. Even the king, the queen, and the good fairies shuddered at her name. But then came Prince Philip, Aurora's hero and savior of the kingdom. He took Maleficent on without the fear that everyone else had for her. And look what happened. One shot. Remember, bullies only have as much power as you give them. But the second you stand up to them, by either talking to a teacher, dean, or counselor, or just confronting the bully themselves, they quickly turn into the paper tiger they always were. Maleficent is an excellent example of a bully, ruling by fear and impulse. But the second someone says enough and takes them on fearlessly, victory is just around the corner.
Look, we've all done it. There's no shame in it. You're out there playing Power Rangers, TMNT, or Disney Princess, and before everyone starts, you know which character you want to be. And it don't matter if that character is anything like you at all. But when it comes to Encanto, you don't have to do that, because this movie will tell you who you are. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And let's see how Encanto holds a mirror to all who watch it. Let's go! It's guidance time!
This is my family, a perfect constellation. So many stars and everybody gets to shine.
Even though Moana is the new hotness from Disney right now, and I actually did a video on Maui if you want to check that out later, Encanto definitely had its moment when it came out. Of course, the music was the star of the film, but I want to look at the characters to see what they say about us and our families. Fun fact, did you know that there are people who can figure out everything about you just by discovering if you're the oldest, youngest, or only sibling in your family? This is facts. Meet Alfred Adler, a psychologist and the father of birth order theory, which is, to really simplify it, it works to explain certain personality traits like being shy or confident and basing it whether you're the firstborn kid in your fam, the baby, or somewhere in between. Let's look at the three Madrigal sisters and see what they can show us about being the oldest, middle, and youngest siblings. And we're gonna start with the oldest, Louisa.
I'm the strong one. I'm not nervous. I'm as tough as the crust of the earth is.
When we look at the powerhouse that is Louisa Madrigal, the first thing we notice is her incredible strength. Her gift allows her to essentially be Mr. Incredible, being able to carry way beyond her weight class with ease. But when we look at Louisa's personality, we start to see some connections between her and real-life firstborns. According to Adler, firstborn siblings tend to be very independent and self-reliant. They're more serious and responsible than their younger siblings, and they're also very high-achieving perfectionists who have confidence in their skills and abilities. Do we see any of that in Louisa? Let's take a look. With Louisa, while she's usually seen with other people around the village, we never see her asking for help for most of the movie, so there's that self-reliance. If you compare her to Mirabel and Isabella, she's definitely the more mature and serious one. Not that she's boring, but she's focused on the mission and doing what needs to be done. So let's check that one off. The fact that the entire village looks to her to do anything that requires heavy lifting means that she's earned that title of being reliable through performing her gift over and over again, which makes her high achieving. But it's here that we start to see the dark side of the firstborn. Because she's able to get the job done every single time, when her gift starts to dwindle and her strength starts ebbing away, she freaks out because to her, the job needs to be done perfectly or it's not done at all. She says all of that in Surface Pressure. Remember when she says this?
Under the surface, I'm pretty sure I'm worthless if I can be of service.
That's the pressure she's singing about. The pressure to always be perfect, to always get the job done. Otherwise, who is she to anyone? And if you're the firstborn, this might be a reason why you connected to Louisa so much. You feel like you need to be number one, like you have to be the best and set the example for all time, because if you don't, then you've lost your purpose. But of course, none of this is true. Louisa learns this for herself. She figures out that she doesn't have to be the strong one all the time, that asking for help and giving herself a break is not a sign of weakness, but simply a reminder that she's human. If you're the older sibling, you may have more responsibility than the younger ones, and it may not always be fair. But that doesn't mean you have to deal with it all by yourself. Ask for help when you can, and remember that even though when you're asked to set the example, that should never mean you need to be perfect. But what if you're not the oldest or the youngest? What if you're somewhere in between?
It just needed to be, and it let me be.
When looking at Miss Perfect herself, what we find with Isabella is actually a little different than the typical middle child. Let's take a look at what traits most middle kids have according to our boy Adler. They tend to be independent just like their oldest sibling, because they're older than somebody. They're also good with people, good with ending arguments with others, and they have goals and dreams for their lives. And Isabella shows some of those traits in Encanto. Homegirl is so independent that she seems to spend more time in her room alone with the plants than with others. And unless we're talking about Mirabel, she gets along with everybody and knows how to people. And when her and Mirabel try to patch things up and what else can I do, we find out she wants to do more than just make a perfect rose garden.
What could I do if I just knew it didn't need to be perfect?
This is actually something that makes Isabella different from the typical middle child. The meme around middle kids is that they tend to get ignored between the oldest and the youngest, and they have to fight for attention to be noticed. But in Isabella's case, she's actually the Madrigal who's put on center stage. It's not Louisa who gets engaged to Guzman. Shoot, if we're looking for the Madrigal that gets ignored and overlooked in this house, we know the one, and it ain't Bella. With our Disney version of Poison Ivy, we see that even though you may be more likely to be a certain way due to things you can't control, that doesn't mean you have to stay that way. Isabella could have been a wallflower like most middle siblings tend to be, but she said bump that and decided to be bold and make a name for herself. And we could do the same thing. I'm not saying you should change your whole personality. You should love who you are at the end of the day. But if you want to pull a Miles Morales and not just follow the script that other people have for you,
I'm gonna do my own thing.
While still being true to yourself, Isabella shows you the way. But what if you're the little one? The baby? What does Mirabel possibly have to show you? And now we bring up the baby of the three, Mirabel. The lone Madrigal without a gift and seemingly without any way to make a difference in the family that's slowly falling apart. What does she reveal about the last-born kid? Actually quite a bit, because most last-born kids tend to be outgoing people who think for themselves, but can be a little spoiled and attention-seeking. And that also goes for the only children out there. These traits can apply to you too. And though nobody would call Mirabel spoiled, I mean, Chick doesn't even have a gift. She's pretty much the opposite of spoiled in this fam. And though Abuela may saw otherwise, she really isn't stealing attention for herself. But there's one major part of the youngest child trope that not only applies to Mirabel, but is the reason for changing the entire family. She's rebellious. For most of her life, Mirabel was the ignored one in the family because she didn't have a superpower like everybody else. But when she saw the cracks in the house and the family starting to crack under it, she went against Abuela's instructions to just leave it alone. She didn't just talk about Bruno, she went and talked to him. She had the courage to do what no one else in the fam could, stand up to Abuela and show her the worth of everyone outside of their abilities. Being a rebel doesn't mean you break the rules and do whatever you want. Sometimes it means you see something that's wrong and you're the only one who tries to fix it. Sometimes it means you break bad rules in order to bring justice. And that's what Mirabel did as the youngest. She didn't wait for her older sisters to help her fix the problem. She saw herself as part of the solution. To the baby siblings out there, Mirabel shows that age doesn't matter when it comes to making a difference. It can be harder to be heard, and you might need others to help boost your voice, but you still matter in your family and you can still have an impact. Like Isabella, Mirabel didn't just do what was expected of her. She broke through the expectations to become the change her family needed. So which Encanto character are you? Do you see yourself as the sister that matches up to your birth order? For the oldest, are you the responsible leader like Luisa who feels like they have the world on their shoulders? For the middleborns, does Isabella's desire to be more resonate with you? And our youngest ones, does Mirabel's desire for change and say bump you to the way things have been done sound like you? Or perhaps you see different parts of you in different characters. That's okay, because we're not just a list of personality traits. We're all different and have different quirks. But the biggest takeaway from these three ladies is that change is possible. Luisa went from someone who put her self-worth in what she could do for others to learning how to give herself a break. Isabella got the chance to break out and become something more than the perfect one. And Mirabel, without even having a gift, she had the most important ability of all, being able to heal her family. We are more than our birth order or family title, because Encanto shows us that who we are and who we become is determined by one thing: us.
Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And how's it going? We're about to notch 2 weeks of school done, and things are slowly starting to heat up. You've met all your teachers, you might have had some homework by now, and you may have even heard the T word get dropped already. Which one? You know the one. Test. Hey now, chill. It's okay. It's not like you have a test coming up right now. At least, I hope not, because if you do, then...
Hold on to your butt.
We're gonna keep it pushing our look at resiliency, which is what? The ability to bounce back from hard times. Last time we looked at Deku from My Hero Academia to see how his resiliency helped him become a hero. And today, we're gonna go into the wonderful world of Disney to see how Mulan used her resilience to create her legendary story. Oh, and don't forget to slice that subscribe button and like this video, because it brings honor to the channel. Let's go! It's guidance time! Just in case anybody forgot, let's go over the 3 ways to be resilient. Cause there's no way you'd forget that, right? Don't blame me, GG Nation. The summer slide is real. Some of you forgot how to write over the last 2 months, so so I'm gonna ease you back into this. You can show resilience by blocking out the negative, being creative, and never giving up. Now, as we go over Mulan's story, think about how she showed these 3 traits in her situation. And for anybody wondering, we'll be going over the OG Disney version of Mulan, not the boring remake that nobody saw because of the,
Coronavirus!
And also, spoilers for Mulan, I guess? Listen, this movie came out in the 90s. If you haven't seen this thing by now, that's on you, bro.
What's wrong with you?
At the start of the movie, China is at war. The Huns are invading the country on a quest to take it over. And to help boost the army, the Emperor of China makes a law saying that one man from every family in the empire has to fight in the army to take down the enemy. Mulan's father wants to fight in the war, but he's a little bit on the older side and is already injured from previous battles. Mulan begs her father to stand down, but he has every intent to fight no matter how hurt he is. This is where our heroine takes matters into her own hands. She swipes her own man's armor and sword, cuts her hair, and enters the Imperial Army as a man. Now throw in a lucky cricket and a talking lizard.
Dragon, not lizard. I don't do that tongue thing.
Whatever. Add your animal sidekicks and you got yourself a Disney classic. And despite the law saying that women can't serve in the military, the many people who thought that she couldn't cut it as a soldier, and oh yeah, the fact that she can't even fight, Fa Mulan plays a major part in the war, and at times was a full-on carry job in order to take down the Huns. So now that we're reminding ourselves of the story, let's go deeper to see what Mulan's brand of resiliency looks like, specifically with her creativity.
We've got a long way to go.
Okay, so have you heard the old saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? That phrase describes what resilience looks like when you don't give up and block out the negative, but aren't creative in solving your problem. You can block out the haters and never give up all you want, but if you keep using the same failed strats over and over again, you're only going to end up with... Let's look at Mulan's situation. Her original problem was that her father was going to join the army when it wasn't the best thing for him. The first thing she tried to do was try to talk him out of it. And how did that go?
Father, you can't go.
Mulan.
Please, sir. My father has already fought bravely.
Silence! Mulan, you dishonor me.
Not so great. But she blocks out the negative and the straight-up rejection and tries again later that night.
You shouldn't have to go. There are plenty of young men to fight for China.
It is an honor to protect my country and my family.
So you'll die for honor.
I will die doing what's right. I know my place. It is time you learned yours.
So she's 0 for 2 on talking daddy out of the war thing. At this point, she needs a new approach. She needs to get creative. So she goes, bump this, I'm gonna do it myself, and joins the army while incognito mode. Then she runs into problem 2. Cool, my dad's not in the army, but how do I fight? Captain Shang is in full boot camp mode to get his civilian army into fighting shape, and Mulan has to master the art of war while still being able to pass as a bro. Except the only bro anybody's given her is...
Bruh. Oh no. Bruh.
Sonic boom!
Bruh.
It's not looking good. In fact, it's so bad that the Cap straight up tells her to get out. And here again, she ignores the negative voices of her haters and keeps trying, which not only proves to Shang that she can be a warrior, but also inspires her squad to level up. But it's when Mulan enters battle for the first time when her creativity literally saves her life. Mulan and company are ambushed by the Huns in the mountains. They're outnumbered and overpowered. They need a major move to escape death. Captain Shang has a plan, but he's playing it by the book, doing what anyone else would have done in that situation. But Mulan goes full Miles Morales and goes,
I'm gonna do my own thing.
And takes a cannon, and instead of aiming it at the army, she aims it at the mountaintop, creating an avalanche that takes out the Huns and gives the army the W. But then Mulan comes up against problem number 3. What do I do if I get exposed? And that's exactly what happens after that battle. And after saving their lives, by the way, her cover is blown and she's left to die in the snow. And despite the hate that was thrown her way, and after she saved their lives too. Man, that's just disrespectful and petty. She blocks it out after seeing the Huns rise from the snow and head towards the capital. And with that intel, she can't just give up now, so she goes to the Emperor's city to warn the army. But Shang isn't listening to her. So what does she do? She gets creative, son! She recruits her military friends to get themselves into the palace in disguise, which allows her to save the Emperor from Shan Yu's attack and finish him off once and for all. Now that may be the end of Mulan's story, but how does her life impact yours?
It looks like you're out of ideas.
Not quite.
Mulan's creativity gave her the ability to keep her father out of the army, save said army from the Huns, and ultimately save all of China. So how can creativity work in your situation? It depends on the problem, because there are many ways to solve the issue. But that's exactly the first step to unlocking creative resilience. Remember that there's more than one way. Life isn't math where there's only one answer to the problem. Most times, a situation will have many ways to get around it. It could look like looking at the problem from another perspective, or growing through it step by step to see where issues come up. Secondly, remember that creativity is a team effort. Mulan didn't save the Emperor by herself. She got her friends to help her in that mission, and you have that same option too. Ask for help. Check to see how someone else might get through your problem, because two heads are better than one. The story of Mulan is one of courage, determination, and unstoppable resilience. Her creativity showed her different ways to solve a problem, and that relying on others made her stronger than she ever could have been alone. And remember, you have that same kind of creativity as well. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And we're back at school, everybody. It feels like New Year's Day, man. Everyone's excited and ready for the days to come, except for the sad sacks in the corner, but we're gonna just ignore them and their emotional damage.
Emotional damage!
But what are you gonna do when life gets real? When the test you didn't study for is coming up, and you got the big game this weekend, and your best friend is ghosting you? Well, that's what we're here for. Hopefully things are chill right now in your classroom, but when things change, I want to make sure you're ready. And I'm going to use one of the greatest anime out right now as our starting point. Let's go! It's guidance time!
Hey, Midoriya! Pull yourself together, kid. If you really want to get into UA, you might actually have to know something.
Let's start with some vocab words before we get too deep into this. For the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking about resilience, which is the ability to bounce back from tough times. Because like I said, we can't avoid difficulty and challenges in life, and what's important is not letting those challenges become your whole life. And we're going to be learning about some people who had it tough, but instead of quitting, they got tough instead. And we're going to start with my boy Deku from My Hero Academia. And for those of you looking at me like, don't worry, I got you. If you've never watched My Hero, then the best way to describe it is like this. Okay, fake Harry Potter is like subbed magic with superpowers. In the world of My Hero, 80% of all people have superpowers, or quirks as they're called. Some quirks could be as basic as being invisible, as complex as being able to explosions with your sweat, or as OP as being able to shoot fire and ice. But Deku, the protagonist of the story, has no quirk. He's got nothing.
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
So, as you might expect, being the one kid in class with no special powers makes Deku the most bullied kid in school, and no one expects anything from him as a result. But that doesn't stop Deku. His dream is to become the #1 hero, and to protect others from disaster. But that dream is pretty much impossible if he doesn't even have a quirk. That is, until my boy puts his life on the line to save a classmate from a villain who's going on a rampage. And not only is he doing this without powers, he's doing this to save his biggest bully. And I'm gonna keep it a buck. Bro's better than me. I wouldn't have done that if I was in his position.
Oh my god!
This catches the attention of the #1 hero, All Might, who's pretty much Superman. He's got all his powers except that he can't fly, he can't do the heat vision, and of course, no capes.
No capes!
All Might sees Deku's heart and gives Deku a chance to become a hero. All Might gives Deku his own powers. Now, super hype story aside, what does any of this have to do with resilience? Hold up, I'm starting to cook. You have to give it time. We now have Deku, who's gone from being a quirkless chump to having the powers of the strongest hero in the world. Now that he has the one thing that has stopped him from fulfilling his dream, he's ready to get to work. He applies to the same high school All Might went to in order to get the best superhero training he can get. He's ready, except for one thing. The strength of All Might is too much for his body. If Deku were to just go ham and use 100% of his powers, he'd fall apart faster than the Lakers in the playoffs.
Boo this man!
Oh, come at me.
I feed off your hate.
But because our Zero to Hero has resilience, he trains his body to become strong enough to handle the power surging through him. And it's not a one-time thing. He keeps going and going like the Energizer Bunny.
They keep going and going. Stop the bunny, please.
And where does all this working out get him? Well, let's take a look. It got him into the school he wanted to go. He's able to take down villains with way more experience than him. And perhaps most importantly, he begins to live out his dream, protecting others when all hope seems lost. Now, the anime is in its final season right now, so now's the perfect time to get into the action. Just don't engage with the fan base on social media. They're not right, bro. So now that we know where Deku started and where he's at now, let's bring it back to resilience.
One for all, full counting. 100%!
Think about the school year that's right in front of us. I'm sure some of you have goals that you want to accomplish. And if not, get on that, man. It could be getting on honor roll, being a starter for your sports team. It could be anything. And if you have a strong goal, it's gonna be hard to get it on your first try. And if you end up taking L after L, you might end up feeling like your dream is impossible. But this is where resilience comes in. Deku shows exactly how resilience works. You can be resilient like Deku in 3 ways. 1, block out the negative. Deku heard a lot of people tell him that he can't be a hero. Classmates, doctors, shoot, even his own mom didn't believe he could do it. We may have people who want to tell us what we can and can't do with our lives. Now, if they're trying to stop you from doing something dangerous against the rules or something that could hurt you or others, you should listen to them. But if anyone tells you that you can't have the job that you want or have the grades that you want, then don't listen to them. And it doesn't matter who they are. Focus on your dream and pay more attention to those who are telling you that you can get the job done. Second, you gotta be creative. Deku is a thinker, and even though he can solve a problem by just punching it until it's gone, other times he realized that talking can stop an issue from getting worse, or even other people could be better suited for the job than him. And for us, resilience might look like meeting your goal in a way that's different from when you first planned. You might need a plan B or C before you get it right, and that's okay. And lastly, don't give up. It's simple because it's true. If Deku had listened to his haters and stopped trying to be a hero, he wouldn't have been able to save his friend, All Might would have never shared his power with him, and he would have spent the rest of his life quirkless. But he didn't quit. Even when it was hard, he didn't quit. Even when everyone told him to give up, he didn't quit. And we need to do the same thing. Resilience is not perfection. It's not getting everything right and never failing. Nah, it's failing, falling down in your face and embarrassing yourself, but having the strength to block out the negative, be creative, and not give up. And we saw how it worked out for Deku. Let's see how it's gonna work out for you. With over 60 million copies sold, Dogman has gone from Captain Underpants' kid brother to making his own name in the literacy world, and soon a full motion picture event. But beyond the goofiness of the world of Dogman, lies truth that not everybody is ready for. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. Let's go! It's guidance time!
Break the dog! Hit the siren!
I'm not kidding when I say that Dogman is a wild ride. Let's start with his origin story in the first book. Just what is Dogman anyway? A highly evolved dog that can act like a human? Or a mutant with a dog head? Let's just say that if you don't already know, I don't think you're ready for this. Our story begins with Officer Knight and Greg the dog, crime-fighting duo of whatever city this story takes place in. They don't tell us. Between the two of them, Greg has the brains while Knight has the brawn. Enter Petey, the town's villainous feline who sees their potential and wants to take them out. So he goes full Wile E. Coyote and creates a whole bomb for them to disarm. And when Greg tries to cut the cord, well, it doesn't work out well. In fact, it's so bad that at the hospital, both Greg and Knight are about to meet the Grim Reaper himself. So what do the doctors do? Well, they see that Greg's body is wrecked except for his head. And Knight's body is perfectly fine, but his head is, well, it ain't gonna make it. So through some miracle of science, they combine Greg's smarts and Knight's athleticism to create Dogman. That's right, Dogman is a fusion straight out of DBZ. They cut off this man's head and plopped a doggy head in his place and went, yeah, that will do. Are you for real right now? I want to show you something. Look at this thing on Dog Bro right now. What is this? I thought it was some facial hair like, oh look, homeboy's got some stubble, he's working on a beard.
It's not a beard!
These are stitches. This is what's keeping this freak of nature alive. And you want to know how everyone treats the recipient of the world's first human-dog hybrid surgery? Everybody's cool with it. They treat the fact that a man got his head cut off and replaced with a golden retriever's mug like it's no big thing, and they celebrate it.
And everybody's okay with this?
Did I miss something?
This is insane. You got the X-Men over here who save the world on the daily, and people can't stand them just for existing, while you got the Dogman Megazord over here being given the keys to the city. But even this absolute insanity shows us something important. Our friends are a part of who we are. Now, of course, I'm not saying you are the literal combination of your best friends type of thing. That sounds like the beginning of a horror movie, actually. But just like how DM is the best parts of Greg and Knight, part of who you are is a combo of the people you spend the most time with. And this can be great if your friends are people who want to do their best and be their best while treating those around them with the same kind of energy. But if your crew is a collection of drama queens and people who want to cause trouble for fun, you're looking less like Dogman and more like Zamasu from Dragon Ball Super. But no, not this version. This one. If you think that a fusion of yourself and your best friend would not be as put together as Dogman, then look to see who else is in your circle who would be a better match for you, then ghost everybody else. Yes, I mean it. Because we're talking about the kind of person you want to be. Would you rather be the best version of yourself and those around you? Or be stuck with somebody else's trash? The life of Dogman has it all. Adventure, mystery, and there's a lot in even the first book. So what we're gonna do is look at chapters 3 and 4 of Pup Bro's first book and see where we can go all guidance guy on it. In chapter 3, we see Dr. Doofus versus Cat. Come up with a new way to destroy reading for everyone, the No Wordinator. Peter then unleashes his new invention to eliminate every word from not just the tri-state area, but the entire world. And in a world where there's nothing to read, people get dumb real quick. And not even a major league reader like Dogman is immune to the stupid. And it gets embarrassing. Folk can't follow a conversation, common sense falls apart, and you can't tell me that somebody doesn't kick the bucket because of somebody else's stupidness. And right here, we got a big takeaway. Learning can save lives. Now, sure, your brain won't shrink into a raisin if you've never read a book or learned anything new, but you certainly won't grow as a person. It's only when we take on a new challenge or figure out something that we didn't know before that we not only become smarter, but we give ourselves a little upgrade and become a little bit better. We've all had those moments where school was just too much and we wish we could just do away with it. But the people of Dogman City find out the hard way what happens when you stop learning. You stop growing as a person. And while you can learn from reading, it's not the only way. Asking questions, trying something you've never done before. There are many ways to expand your brain. And when you do that, it's easier to see through people who are trying to trick you or even straight up lie to you. Learning happens beyond the classroom and outside of a book, but you still need to seek it out before you can level up.
This Supercut made friends, solves crimes, and even plays piano for the old folks.
If you thought Dog Bro was a crazy trip, get ready for Chapter 4, The Weenie Wars, The Franks Awaken. We start with Big Bad Petey rotting away in jail. But only cat jail? Because you can't be putting Petey with the regular lockup, apparently. And he ends up getting a little present. That gift is a spray can with the ability to make anything he touches alive. And Petey tries this can of life-giving energy on his dinner. A hot dog. A couple spritz later and this sausage is walking around, talking, acting like a whole human being. So evil Garfield uses his new friend as his meal ticket out of prison. But then the Coney wants to be friends with his jailbreaking partner. But Petey shuts that down real quick and rejects him hard. But for as smart as the world's evilest cat is, not even he was ready for what happens next. His former partner in crime creates an army of living ballparks to take over a world that has betrayed them and saw them only as food. And because it's Dogman, the situation goes off the rails real quick. But even in the madness of talking dogs, dog traps, and even a monster taco, I'm telling you, you gotta read this thing. We see Petey learn the hard way what happens when we don't treat people right. We're all told to be kind to others, treat others the way you want to be treated and all that. But for some folk, they just don't get the message. Instead, they would rather take advantage of other people, manipulate them, or only use them to get what they want out of them and then abandon them like Petey did to that poor Frank. And I'm not exaggerating either. We have people in this world who live like that, as if the only thing that matters is their own needs. And it doesn't matter who they step on or whose lives they wreck, as long as they get theirs. Some of you may even know people like that. But I'm gonna tell you what, the folk who live like that, it always comes back to them. Yes, for some, it looks like they get away with it, like Petey seemed to when he just dumped the dog and moved on to his next villainous scheme. But your actions always come back around. Not to mention, Petey is always in a miserable mood. So even when these people do get what they want, they ain't happy. In life, we often make our best friends and worst enemies solely by how we treat others. So what would you rather make? A new BFF or a new arch nemesis? Imagine being a YouTuber with over 55 million subscribers across 5 channels, starring in your own movie, and creating incredible generational wealth for your family for all time. Now imagine that same YouTuber being 13 years old. This is the life of Ryan Kaji, the face of Ryan's world. But despite all your success, you're restless. You wonder if you've aged out of your own content. Perhaps you want to do something different, and you keep hearing about what other people think you should do. Despite your fame, you still go to school, and you enter the office of your school counselor for some help. And as a school counselor, how would I tell one of the biggest YouTubers in the world what to do with their future? Let's find out. It's guidance time.
So, the million-dollar question is Rand's Toys Review, is he a slave? Let's have a wee look at this.
Given the increasing scrutiny that his channel is getting and all the outside noise that comes with it, Ryan can be coming in feeling confused, frustrated, angry even, at the fact that his life is going this way. He may also feel lost, not sure what to do next, and even alone, because who else has lived this life? Regardless, my first job is to make him feel welcome. This isn't a TV interview with his parents right next to him. He has the space to say what he wants and how he feels about everything. I let him know that as long as he doesn't say anything that might endanger himself or others, it all stays in this room. The focus will be on him, not his parents, not on what other people are saying, but only on Ryan Kaji. I want to give Ryan control, a concept that perhaps he's not familiar with, and that's understandable. When you've been living in the public eye since you were a toddler, the only control you might see is the kind that others have over you.
Where's 10? Good boy. And how old are you?
3.
At this point, Ryan might tell me about his YouTube journey, that he's been in the content creation game ever since he was 3. He knows he has the dream job of most people his age, but he might say that all comes at a price. With the millions of subs that Ryan has, he's created an unbelievable amount of parasocial relationships, which are one-way connections that the fans of a creator, actor, or other public figure have with their fan base. For Ryan, he doesn't know anything about his followers, but they know a lot about him. They know his favorite things, the different houses he's lived in, the journey he's been on as a creator. For the past 10 years, Ryan has not lived a normal life, making thousands of videos in the last decade on a weekly basis. He stops for a moment, and after a pause, he says something he's been thinking for years but has never said out loud. My whole life is content. Ryan does review videos, yes, but part of his brand is also as a family channel. So there's an upload whenever he moves to a new house, when a family friend gets married. Shoot, even the birth of his twin sisters gets turned into a vehicle for views. Ryan might bring up a time that he tried talking to a friend who's not a creator about this, and he told him, bro, just take a vacation. Ryan sighs. He recalls telling his friend that he does do that, but even those moments meant as a break from the grind get transformed into videos. And that's on top of still going to school, doing red carpet events and interviews. I would validate his experience and his feelings. Most people looking on the outside just see the glitz and the glamour and think that he has no right to complain. But despite the money and the fame, Ryan is still a person, and he might even struggle with guilt about that. He knows most people would want his life, but he's not sure if he wants it, at least in its current form. So I ask him, how do you feel about being a creator? Do you still have the passion for it? I'd listen as he tells me his answer. Maybe he's mentally moved on from being the toy kid and wants to branch out into something else, or maybe even leave content creation and do something else entirely. But he might feel trapped, because every aspect of his life has been turned into fodder for the YouTube algorithm.
Hey Ryan, I've got Audie the Otter, and he's inviting you to his birthday.
Whoa, it's his birthday.
It's here that Ryan explains what brought him to my office in the first place. He feels he has anxiety and might be depressed. Living most of his life under the lens of a camera has taken away any sense of privacy he feels he should have, he tells me. He feels anxious, he says, because he feels stuck in this loop of living his life for views, likes, subs, and money. He wants to do something else, be someone else, but he has no idea what. And the looming despair comes in because he doesn't see a way out. and I can see his anguish. One doesn't become one of the top creators on YouTube by accident. Ryan knows how to win at the YouTube game, but maybe he wants to win in another way, maybe away from the camera, taking on a challenge that doesn't require the Ryan's World persona he's been carrying his entire life. But he knows that he has responsibilities to his parents who run the channel, to his family to keep bringing in the cash, to his fans who expect him to play the role that they know him best for. He doesn't want to disappoint or fail anybody, but he also knows that by staying on this path, he's ultimately failing himself. And that sense of letting himself down and not being able to live his life has made him enjoy his life less. He's not just sad, he's having trouble sleeping. His favorite hobby, gaming, doesn't bring him joy like it used to. He's moody and will sometimes snap at people for little things and then regret it later. And he's also finding himself wanting to cry just out of nowhere. This is what depression looks like. A nagging feeling of unhappiness that doesn't go away. And that constant worry, Ryan goes more into that. Always feeling like something bad is going to happen. Constantly worrying about his future and being stuck doing Ryan's World forever. I can see he's struggling with anxiety as well. It's more than simply worrying. It's an obsessive worry that always comes back and may not even come from anything specific. Ryan tells me he's been researching others like him, kids who have lived in the spotlight. Jeanette McCurdy from iCarly, Disney Channel's Demi Lovato, and megastars like Britney Spears and Michael Jackson. He sees himself in them, but doesn't want to end up like them. I ask him what he means by that, and he says he doesn't want to get child star syndrome. He doesn't want to end up getting hooked on substances, or losing his mind, or even losing his life. It's here I tell Ryan that I understand his concerns, that he should want to live a fulfilling life, free from the troubles that other child stars faced. I do tell him, though, that child star syndrome isn't real, that rather a title that the internet came up with to explain the trend of kids who cashed in early in life only to crash out later on. The real issue he's at risk of is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Though most people outside this room would give the side eye of the idea of being rich and famous as being traumatic, I explain it to him this way. It's not being rich and famous that's traumatic, it's the price of it that is. The long hours of putting a video together, the times you couldn't play with your friends because you had to finish a video, all the cruises and vacations you took thinking it was a real break, only to find out it was a working vacation. Living those experiences over and over is where the trauma starts, and it can lead to depression and anxiety, but also unhealthy eating habits, or just not eating at all, becoming hooked on drugs, and one's life falling apart. So Ryan asks me, how do I stop it? And I respond with the one thing he's been lacking his whole life: control.
Ryan, are you going to keep making YouTube videos, given your interest to be an animator and maybe go behind the camera, like as you get older?
Ryan asks how he can get that control. He still is a minor and can't just walk away, and though he could pull a Jaden Smith and try the emancipation route to legally separate from his parents, he knows that even Jaden didn't follow through on that. So I tell him to start small. 1. Start journaling. Write down his thoughts and feelings. Doing so will help him identify and reclaim his thoughts and feelings. Then use that journal to make a list of what he likes. Don't worry about what the fans or his parents might say, focus on him. And 3rd, I tell him not to Google himself and block out the noise. Avoid videos that are speculating about his life and his parents. They don't know him, and giving them watch time will only harm him. Only he knows the truth, and if anything comes out in counseling that confirms any of the rumors, then we work together to put an end to it. Counseling is a process, so we won't be conquering all his issues in one session. But as with any client, the goal of counseling is not for me to fix their problems, but to empower them to fix themselves and their lives. Remember, no matter how much money someone has or how many followers they got, an influencer is still a human being with their own struggles. They're not machines. They're all just like us.
Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And all week we've been jamming to rock your school week. RYS is a time for schools to bring learning to another level. And if your school isn't in on the fun, I put a link to the Rock Your School website in the description below so that everyone can pump up the learning. And to end Rock Your School, I want to talk about someone who's more than a musician, more than a songwriter. We're talking about one of the greatest music moguls of all time, a visionary who built the foundation of a generation of music whose influence we still feel today. We're talking about the musical pioneer and business genius, Gordy. But before we do, be sure to strum that subscribe button and don't be largo. in liking this video. Let's go! It's guidance time.
My goal was to have people write what they feel and reflect the truth.
Barry Gordy III was born on November 28, 1929 in Detroit, Michigan. And even though he was the 7th of 8 siblings, he wanted to stand out. Though his best work is in the music industry, his journey actually didn't start there. In fact, his first career was as a boxer. Yup, before he was penning tunes, he was throwing hands in the ring. We're talking real Eye of the Tiger Rocky stuff. Oh, hope you're not getting tired of this music gag we got going, because right now, I feel like Captain America.
I can do this all day.
And he continued to box until the Korean War started in the 50s, where Gordy served in the army for 3 years. But even through all that, BG loved music. Even though he never got official lessons in music, he could play the piano and the clarinet. And once he left the army, his music life began. Though it didn't just happen. Empires aren't built in a day. He started out with a record store where... Yeah, I'm gonna have to explain this one, aren't I? Okay, so back in the day, people used record albums to listen to music. Think of them as giant CDs. And if I have to explain what CDs are, I'ma cry. He had a record store, which unfortunately didn't last long. But because he needed that money... He also worked at a Ford car plant back in Detroit, but he continued to refine his craft in his spare time, writing songs and eventually making songs for 50s greats Etta James and Jackie Wilson. This side gig led to hits for Etta and Jackie, like All I Could Do Was Cry and Lonely Teardrops. This allowed Barry to leave the car factory and create one of his own, a musical hit factory. With an incredible eye for talent, he saw the potential in a singer named Smokey Robinson and his group The Miracles and started producing music for them. Not only did this lead to Gordy finding his best friend in Smokey, it also led to the founding of his music label, Tamla Records, or as it would later be known as, Motown.
That was one of the reasons that I decided to do music for all people, because I figured we're all the same. There's more sameness in all of us than there are differences.
Motown is more than just a record label. It's the birthplace of a musical revolution.
The revolution will not be televised, brother.
During the 50s and 60s, it was very difficult for Black American artists to make a name for themselves. Getting clubs that wanted to hear your music could be a challenge. Finding radio stations that felt comfortable playing your tunes across the country could be a battle. For every legend like Nat King Cole, there were dozens of others who either never had the bread to get their name out there or had their style and even their songs stolen from them by others just to claim it as their own. For the record, that's called plagiarism, GG Nation, aka cheating. But Motown broke through the shameless hate and disrespect by creating a musical style that was as unique as a fingerprint, a beautiful fusion of gospel, jazz, rock and roll, and R&B. Barry Gordy perfected what was later called the Motown sound and used it to dominate the charts in the music world. Now, because he was a songwriter and businessman, you might have never heard of him before today. But I'm sure you know these names: The Temptations, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. These acts cemented Gordy's vision for Motown and made a mark in music that could never be copied or ignored. Songs like I Want You Back, Stop in the Name of Love, and Ain't No Mountain High Enough became the soundtrack of a generation during the 60s and 70s. And Barry didn't stop there. Over time, BG made the move to movies where films like The Wiz and Mahogany, the latter of which he directed himself, gave America new options at the theaters. And with all these wins, you better believe he brought home some hardware. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, has an honorary doctorate from the University of Michigan, earned the National Medal of Arts, and much more. And I can hear some of you in the back. What are we supposed to take from all of this? Ha! You have no idea.
You said an assembly line. What does that mean? You ran Motown like an assembly line.
Well, I then thought, because I was a music lover and a writer, that if I started a company, so a kid can come in one door, an unknown, and out another door, a star.
It takes a certain kind of someone to put the right words together that transform a song into an earworm. When directing a movie, you must be able to see many little details all at the same time to see how they all work together. And just like what Barry Gordy did, we could do that in our own lives. We must remember that details are the secret sauce to success. It's the details that make the difference between having the right answer to a math problem and showing your growth, and just having the right answer but not showing your work. The details can turn a basic essay into a riveting story. The details can make the difference between victory and defeat. We cannot sweat the details in our work. When we do that, it can lead to cutting corners, silly mistakes, and ultimately a mid effort. Don't be mid when you can be excellent. Don't settle for good enough when you know you can be great. And getting the details right rarely happens the first time. Be resilient and don't give up. Learn from your mistakes and get better. And remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's your best effort. Barry Gordy's career is a testament to the importance of making sure the details matter. Now the question is, what will you do with the little details in your life?
If you could have just about anything you could imagine, if you could live out your wildest dreams, that should be the recipe for a perfect life, right? But what if I told you that one of the biggest names on this platform sometimes doubts his own identity? Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And join me as we figure out what's going on with KSI behind the scenes. Let's go! It's guidance time. Everyone's heard the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And we all know the kid who said that he or she wanted to be a dentist, a pro wrestler, an astronaut, and a dinosaur all at the same time. When we look at the career of one KSI, one can say that he was that kid. Sure, he's most known for his YouTube work, but he's gotten his bag from many different places. He's a streamer, a rapper, a boxer, bro. This man is not only living his best life, he's living multiple best lives. But at what cost, though? Let's go through KSI's journey from the beginning to see where he took off, but also see where perhaps mentally he started to fall off. Before he was KSI, he was known as Alajide Alatunji, the oldest son of Nigerian parents. He grew up in the UK where his parents made sure he received the best education he could, doing his studies at private schools in England. But when he was 14 years old, he made the most important decision of his life. He began his YouTube journey, though not the one we all know today. Nah, KSI's first channel was actually Jide Jr. And you want to know what his first video was about? Go ahead and guess. I bet you won't get it. His first upload was a video for a school project. Yeah, want to take a look? I'll show you. A quick look at KSI before he blew up.
The reason why radio telescopes are so big are because the size of the radio telescope determines the amount of radiation coming in.
Yeah, not exactly the explosive in-your-face personality that we've come to expect, huh? Shoot, forget in your face, he doesn't even show his face. So very different from what we're used to. But keep this in mind, because we're going to come back to it. Jide Jr. would continue for a few more videos, mostly focusing on FIFA compilations. But then a year later, Olajide would begin the transformation into the man that would transform YouTube from across the ocean. In 2009, the channel KSI would be born. Here, he would continue making FIFA videos with his occasional Modern Warfare video on the side, but as time went on, so did his passion for content creation. He would post more and more often. He started doing vlogs and telling stories about his personal life. And Chibi KSI eventually got to the decision that every big creator has to make. Am I going to take the plunge and do this full time? And despite doubts from his immigrant parents who were dumping thousands on his private school education, KSI made the jump and was determined to make content his career. But it turned out it wasn't his only career. Because even from the beginning, KSI had a sweet spot for music, with 2 videos on his OG channel being rap singles that he made for the lulz. And he just kept working on the music as his channel grew. In 2011, he dropped Lamborghini, his first single which reached 30 on the UK singles chart. And as his YouTube career grew, so did his music business. Although KSI loves doing those singles and music videos, with 53 he's done so far, he's also put in work on 2 full albums. A genius move as his YouTube career boosts his music, and his music boosts his YT work. And then there's the boxing. After being shown how to fight by one of his YouTube friends, KSI took a liking to the sport and learned how to box. He then put his skills on the line in 2018 to take on fellow YouTuber Joe Weller that he was beefing with at the time. After taking down Weller, he went for the jugular and challenged his future BFF, Logan Paul, to the next fight. And after a draw in the first match and finishing him off in the second bout, he kept going from there, to the point where he is now 4-1 in all fights. In all, despite the occasional dunking that he gets, KSI has made a name for himself in the influencer space, but has also used his talent to break out of the YouTube bubble in ways that others could only dream. But is it possible that with all of this success, KSI has given something up along the way?
I don't know. It's just like, at some point, I'm struggling to find joy in things.
I want to show you something. This is a clip from one of KSI's more recent videos. At least, before his channel turned into a massive ad for his music. This is what Vivo is for, bro. Pay attention to the energy that KSI has, and we'll come back.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy KSI with GWT, and well. This time last week, I was in the biggest event in internet history. Yeah, history has been made.
Okay, what did you see? The laughing, the fast talking, the energy. This is KSI as we know him. The bigger-than-life personality that can electrify a room. This is who we know him to be. Now keep this in mind, because now we're going to do a throwback KSI video. See if you've noticed any differences from the first clip.
Okay, enough of that. Basically, I just want to say thank you so much for 20,000 subscribers, for more than 20,000 subscribers. It's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, this hit a little different, huh? You can still see a glimmer of future KSI in there, but here, the swag isn't completely there. Instead, it comes off as goofy or even awkward. So what happened? How did KSI go from this to this? Actually, the man realized it himself. KSI has said on podcasts that while growing up, he was a quiet kid, and it was actually doing YouTube that forced him to be more bold. But how does KSI go from being an introverted kid into this bombastic, loud super talent? That's just one of the side effects of fame. KSI has said that due to the success that he's gotten for himself, his life is super fast paced, which doesn't give him a lot of time to stop, breathe, and enjoy the situation. It's just going from one project to the next and trying to get bigger and better. And living your life like that can cause you to lose yourself, which is exactly what KSI has dealt with in the past.
I just didn't ever think we'd ever be at a point where we'd be making that much and, we'd be together, killing it. So I think it's just been a lot for me to try and figure out who I am, what I am. And I think I had a little bit of an identity crisis.
An identity crisis. You don't know who you are anymore. And he has that identity crisis because he has imposter syndrome. It's not a mental illness or anything, but it's a condition in which someone feels unqualified or undeserving for the situation that they find themselves in. This is the internal struggle that KSI is dealing with. Are you the same goofy kid that made FIFA videos who just got good? Or are you a fraud who just got lucky and you don't deserve to be here? Who knows? Because life is going too fast to figure it all out. As we've seen, you don't get to where KSI is at by simply being lucky and not having that it factor. Except sometimes it seems like even he doesn't realize it. Despite the money, the fame, and the clout that KSI has garnered for himself, there's a part of him that feels like he's an imposter, a fake who's on the road to being exposed. So what does he do about it? Shoot, what can we do about it if we feel the same way?
Sometimes it can get a bit too much to the point where I didn't want to lose myself.
Feeling like you don't belong or that you're an outsider is a feeling that almost everyone gets. But it doesn't make that feeling any less trash when you have it. Thankfully, our boy KSI does do something that you can also do to tackle those emotions of feeling less than. Talking it out with someone. In KSI's case, he admits to having a counselor, and that therapy helps him unpack his thoughts and slow down the hectic life he signed up for. And for us, we can do the same thing. Hopefully you have a school counselor you can reach out to, or if not, reach out to a teacher who might be able to help. Another step you can take is by remembering your story. Everyone has a story of how they got to where they are, and when they're able to retell themselves that story, they remember just how amazing they are. KSI may have struggles of grounding himself in his unreal life, but he's working on turning that around. And so can you if you do the same. Lunchly, the upstart pre-made lunch made by the big three of YouTube. Lunchables, the OG in this game since 1988. And though much shade has been thrown at the new kid in town, what if I told you that they were both trash? That people are using mind games to trick you into eating something that could potentially hurt you? Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. Now let's go. It's guidance time.
Lunchables brand pizza from Oscar Mayer. Your pizza has arrived.
For decades, the debate on the best kids' lunch has had many contenders. You have heat-ups like Chef Boyardee and cafeteria legends like Uncrustables. But these days, the conversation has transformed into a battle between the influencer-backed Lunchly and the original Lunchables by Oscar Mayer. On the surface, it looks like a coin toss. Lunchly provides 3 types of meals: a nacho pack, a pizza box, and the iconic meat and cheese cracker sandwiches that all come with a Mr. Beast chocolate bar and the Prime hydration drink from Logan Paul and KSI. While in the other corner, Oscar Mayer has been putting out the same lunch options and more, including chicken nuggets and even sandwiches like grilled cheese and full-on subs. But when we look deeper, we see that both of these options have issues that are not just problematic, but show that they're both trying to manipulate you. So why exactly, when given the choice between either A, Lunchables, or B, Lunchly, you should go with C, neither? Let's take a look at Lunchly first to see where the cracks start to show. And if you stay to the very end, I've got a shocker to tell you that will change how you see these foods
forever.
One has no sugar added, more electrolytes, and more B vitamins.
Listen, I know a lot of people have been dunking on the influencer trio and their poorly disguised Lunchables knockoff, and they should, but the issues go far deeper than just copying Oscar Mayer's homework and putting Mr. Beast's derpy smile on it. Let's start with the Prime drink that goes into every box. Did you know that Prime is being sued for allegedly putting dangerous chemicals in their drinks? This is facts. Customers are saying that the company behind Prime Hydration, and by extension Paul and KSI, have been selling a drink that contains what are called PFAS, or forever chemicals. While PFAS have the ability to repel water and stains and are used in everything from AstroTurf, clothes, and even makeup, its use in those objects have been deemed safe because, you know, you don't eat those things. But naturally, a problem starts to arise when you're putting those same chemicals into your body. And these things are called forever chemicals because they take a long, long time to break down. And also, they've been linked to several health problems, like cancer. So that's strike one. Lunchly's has a drink that's been accused of having ingredients that have been linked to giving people cancer. So, not a great start, but it actually gets worse. I'd wait a sec before downing that Feastable you got while trick-or-treating, because Mr. Beast is Hershey's But Better bar also is in hot water for allegedly using slave labor. And this is not an exaggeration either, GG Nation. Stick with me here. A dirty little secret in the chocolate industry is that a lot of candy companies pay their workers almost nothing in order to gather the cocoa beans required to make chocolate. And in some cases, these companies will even use children to do this very difficult work. And according to YouTuber on Nestle's video on the subject, Mr. Beast originally stated that his chocolate bars were free of child and slave labor in the beginning of 2023, only to have that writing magically disappear later on in the year. So what does that tell you? That there's a good chance that the #1 YouTuber is using child and slave labor to make his candy. So yeah, none of this is good. We have a lunch that has a drink that could be considered cancer juice, and a candy that was allegedly made by children. And that's not even bringing up the mold. Yes, many of the pizza Lunchlys have been exposed for having mold in their lunches. And just in case this needs to be said, mold doesn't belong on food. Eating moldy food can make you sick. So yeah, you got dollar store Willy Wonka selling you chocolate that may have been made by literal slaves, a popular drink that could give you cancer, all in a pizza box with moldy cheese. Kinda makes you want to go, maybe I'll go for the Lunchables instead. Well, not so fast.
How about peanut butter for lunch?
How about pizza swirls?
When we look at the granddaddy of pre-packed lunches, it doesn't take long to see that Lunchables has some skeletons in their closet as well. Because just like how Lunchly has been accused of having ingredients that it really shouldn't have, so has our boy Lunchables. In fact, just this year, people have been spreading the word about the amount of lead in Oscar Mayer's lunches. Yes, lead, the literal metal that if ingested can mess up your hearing, your heart, your brain, and more. Listen, gasoline companies can't even put lead in their gas for cars, but there it is in your lunchbox. Think about that for a moment. And I say all of this not to scare anyone, but to make you aware. Like I said, these food companies are using a mind trick to make you believe that their food is better than it is. And if you stay with me to the end, I will reveal that secret. But for now, let's compare these two options side by side to see which one is actually the better choice. As if there is a better choice between possible cancer and possible lead poisoning. But yeah, you know what I mean. The three-headed monster of Beast, KSI, and Paul are out there saying that Lunchly is the healthier choice between the two. But is that the truth? Really though? Let's bring up the side-by-side comparison that Lunchly has on their own website. Let's break down these words on top. Protein is like the construction worker of the body. It can build, repair, and make the body stronger. When people talk about bulking up and getting big and strong, protein is what makes it happen. And when looking at the three meals, the comp is not anything to write home about. Lunchly's nachos have 2 more grams of protein than Lunchables, but the others are either the same or Lunchables barely beats them out, so it's not a big deal. But let's look at the next category, calories. Calories often gets a bad rap for leading to obesity and being a bad thing. But if we're talking about the main audience for Lunchly, kids, let's be real, calories are not that big a deal. As long as you're not overeating, how many calories in a given food doesn't really matter. So one can say that having less calories isn't really great if kids need calories in order to support their growing bodies. We'll come back to electrolytes in a bit,
But for now, let's talk sugar. In all three lunches, Lunchly crushes it when it comes to its sugar content, having far less than Lunchables. But it's here that we gotta look at the fine print, because there's a secret method that ensures Lunchly has lower sugars. It's here in the ingredient list. Look at it right there. Sucralose and acesulfame potassium. These two are the secret sauce to a lower sugar count in Lunchly, but they're also artificial sweeteners. In other words, they're fake, and studies show that fake sugars can lead to heart problems. Yeah, we know that too much sugar isn't good for you, but real sugar is always better than fake sugar with words that you need a doctor to help you pronounce. Now we got electrolytes, which are minerals that carry an electric charge, which is why part of the word electric is in the word. It's electrolytes that give you the energy you need when you're tired from exercise or working out, which is why Gatorade and Powerade are huge with athletes. But here's the problem with Lunchly side by side. They're comparing Prime, a hydration drink, with Capri Sun, which is just a sugar drink. That's not a fair comparison. That's like saying that Gatorade is better for exercise than Hawaiian Punch. Well, yeah, it's Hawaiian Punch. It's not meant to be used like that.
Duh.
And it's this comp right here that exposes the mind trick that both Lunchables and Lunchly are using to con you into eating foods with fake sugars, lead, and chemicals that can mess up your life. You want to know what that is?
This calls for a celebration. Egg salad.
Dad, we need an all-star lunch.
Let's look at two ads, one from Lunchables and one from Lunchly, and see if you can tell what the message of these ads are. Ready? Let's do this.
What is that? It's a monster.
It's an alien. No, it's a pony.
Lunchables, what's your Lunchable?
So what did we see here? Throughout this commercial, we see the message of Lunchables are fun. Have fun with your food. What with the Godzilla-looking beast rampaging through the city, only to be some kids' food art. So much for not playing with your food. Next up, Lunchly.
Tiny, 3, 2, 1.
That's disgusting. What's a pizza? Oh my god, it comes with Mr. Beast. Done.
Now here we're seeing the message of we're Lunchables, but better. I don't even know who this kid is, but he did a great job dunking on Lunchables while making Lunchly look like the obviously better option. Now those messages from those ads, that's called marketing. Something every company uses. Marketing is taking a product, be it a toy, car, or food, to make it look like something you not just want, but you need it. You need that Feastable. You need that Prime drink because having it is your ticket to a good time, a better life, or whatever. And that's the mind trick they're using to play you. Because as we've seen, both Lunchables and Lunchly are pretty trash. Their products might have dangerous materials that can make you sick. Now here comes the truth bomb that I promised earlier. You want to know who doesn't let their kids eat Lunchables? Bob Drain, aka the creator of Lunchables. This is facts. Bobby Boy is on the record saying he doesn't allow his kids to eat Lunchables because, quote, we eat healthy.
Oh my god!
That's just wild. That's like the creator of Lego not letting his kids play with them because in this house, we play with real toys, bro. So remember that the next time you see these things in the grocery store. If the creators of these products don't even eat them, why should you?
Wheel of morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn.
Marketing is all around us. It tries to make us believe that we need something that we don't. And by looking at both Lunchly and Lunchables, you now know that both companies are trying to sell you junk food that can make you sick that they probably wouldn't even feed to their dogs. So what do you do instead? Look up the ingredients list of any food you pick up. If any of the ingredients have more than, say, 5 letters and the list is longer than a nursery rhyme, that's a red flag. And 2, don't forget about your whole foods. Fruits, veggies, whole grains. That stuff not only tastes good, but is good for you. Don't fall prey to mind games of companies that care more about your money than they care about you. Protect your mind and body with knowledge. Here we have the #1 YouTuber in the world who is beloved by millions of people. But in the last few months, rumors have been popping up that reveal that perhaps Mr. Beast isn't who he's been telling us he is. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today we're diving in to figure out whether or not Mr. Beast is truly who you think he is. Let's go. It's guidance time.
I opened up the world's first free restaurant. And if that wasn't enough, I also paid people to eat at my restaurant.
Beast has built his name as a YouTube legend with insane challenges and S-tier charity. With over 100 million subscribers, he's not just built a name for himself, but a brand. From burgers to chocolate to toys, one might say that he's grown beyond the YouTube bubble that he's most known for. But despite his massive online presence, does anyone outside his inner circle really know this man? Because you can't deny that Mr. Beast's philanthropic efforts are impactful. He's gone from internet goofball to borderline superhero, doing everything from cleaning up the ocean to helping others see again. But what goes on after the upload? Who is Jimmy Donaldson when the cameras aren't rolling?
New bars come in 7 flavors, milk chocolate. Thank you. Milk crunch. Yes, please.
Let's start with something that we actually touched on the last GGF. The possibility that Mr. Beast's Hershey's knockoffs are made with child and slave labor. A lot of your favorite chocolate companies are on the record that they either criminally underpay their workers in Africa to gather the cocoa beans that produce chocolate, or they just don't pay them at all. And some of those employees are children. And there's a good chance that Feastables are right up there on that list. But that's not the only problematic issue that Jimbo has with the people of Africa. When he was just starting out on YouTube, Beast was caught in 4K saying this about African slaves.
Selling N-word for $400 money? The most I would pay is like $300. Sorry, $400 is just out of my price range.
This isn't fake, GG Nation. This is facts. The #1 YouTuber might be using slave labor to build his candy empire, but as it turns out, he just might be okay with that. But we're just getting started here. You've heard of the show Squid Game from a few years back, right? The series that changed the way we play red light, green light for about a year or so. Apparently, our boy Beastie loved that show so much that he's making his own version of it, Beast Games. A game show where a bunch of people play for a $5 million prize while competing in the most insane situations. Sounds like a viral idea, doesn't it? And it is, as the video is the most watched video on his channel. But since that video was published, contestants on the show have been rising up to discuss the insane conditions they had to endure while being under the eye of the Beast Man. Conditions like only being fed twice a day, not being allowed to take their meds when they need to, and being so exhausted that contestants pass out. Now that sounds odd, doesn't it? The guy who's helping people down in their luck with buckets of money on one video is treating people like animals in another? Is this the same guy? Apparently, it's the same guy with that same unsettling smile. So let's do a quick recap. We have before us a YouTuber who's made his name off of big stunts and big charity, but he's also connected to very bigoted views about black people, allegedly using child labor to build his brand and running people into the ground for the sake of a TV show. This doesn't really match up with the image that we've all been given of this guy, but what if I told you that it gets worse?
Telling their stories of fake videos or unsafe practices, toxic workplace, stuff like that.
Maybe you've heard of this guy, Dogpack404, a former employee of Mr. Beast's company who released 2 bombshell videos exposing the dark side of Beastie Boy's operation. Some of the allegations are small stuff, like faking parts of videos to make it more dramatic, but between 2 videos and over 2 hours of content, Dogpack dropped a bomb that shook the YouTube world. The allegation that Mr. Beast was aware of PDF files on his team. And for those who don't know what I just said, I'm gonna put it this way. When I say PDF file, I'm talking about stranger danger. I'm talking about adults that want to do really bad things to kids. Get what I'm saying now? Now you can't go around and throw in accusations like that without receipts. And let me tell you, Dogpack had receipts, conversations, screenshots. He had enough evidence to say what he said with his whole chest. And it's only gotten crazier from there. Even in the last couple weeks, a whole group chat involving Mr. Beast where creepy and inappropriate pics and images were shared were exposed. And remember, MB is trying to market himself like some new age Willy Wonka, selling literal toys and candy to kids while giving to charity to look like a good guy. But would a good guy allow PDF files on his payroll? Would a good guy hang around someone who makes jokes about hurting kids? Not in my book. At this point, you might be asking yourself, why? Why would Beast allow this? Why would he do all this? And as crazy as it all sounds, it boils down to one word: obsession.
It's nice having you around too, because it's like a buddy to work hard with, so I don't feel so alone late at night.
What do Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Bill Gates have in common? I mean, other than having more money than some hold-behind countries. They've all said that part of their success is an obsession with winning and success, and good old Jimmy can be added to this list. Beast has said in interviews that when he first started out on YouTube, that he would watch YouTube for days in order to understand what made a video go viral. He did that because he wanted to be the absolute best at YouTube. And though you could look at the success he's gained and say, well, it clearly worked, so what's the problem? Well, in some ways, nothing. Our society is fixated on fast results and instant W's, but Beastie shows us that in order to get what you want, you need to grind for it and be willing to grind for a long time. That by itself is good, actually. The problem comes when that desire for success becomes your entire life. You start to sacrifice time with your family and loved ones, sacrificing your health and sleep, and as we've seen with MB, even sacrificing the well-being of others. And that's the danger of obsession. It's a monster that always wants more and demands things that you need to keep yourself healthy in body and mind. And even though Beast has made his goal of being the best on this platform, it's still not enough for him. He keeps trying for more and more, while possibly destroying people's lives in the process. Co-workers, guests on his show, and people who live a whole continent away. If your success is coming at the cost of other people, then you're doing success wrong. So what should we do instead?
As now people are pretty much trying to out Mr. Beast as a deceitful fraud.
What we've seen with Mr. Beast is what can happen when obsession controls you. It gives you an uncontrollable thirst for more success, more money, no matter what the cost. And that's not good for you, your mentals, or the people around you. But even though obsession is not it, success is still something to work toward. So instead of becoming obsessed, be focused. Know what you want and work to figure out how you're going to get there. Ask for help and allow others to help you. Know that you won't get everything you want on the first or second go, but learn from every experience and get better. But most importantly, treat yourself and those around you right. Don't destroy your mind or body for your goals, because what's the point of getting everything you want if you can never enjoy it? And make people better through what you do. Don't tear them down, don't look down on them, or put them in danger because you're looking to get yours. Mr. Beast's team has gone out of their way to hide their controversies from their audience by either ignoring the smoke or deleting comments in their videos that are trying to bring attention to the truth. But when you're on your grind and you do it the right way, you'll have no need to look over your back when you finally win. He had one of the most iconic voices in Hollywood. To some, he was known more for the parts he played than for the man he was. But today, we take a look at the man behind the voice. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And for Black History Month, we look at the legends of the past in order to create a brighter future. And though he may not be with us anymore, the legend of James Earl Jones shows us how determination and resiliency can overcome any obstacle. Want to find out how? Then let's go! It's guidance time!
If James Earl Jones today had to give James Earl Jones when he was 25 or 30 some sort of advice, what would you tell yourself?
The only thing you owe yourself or the world is to understand who you are and what you're doing.
James Earl Jones has brought many words to life in ways that no one else can. Imagine a world where classic lines like, "Remember who you are, I am your father," or even memes like, aren't voiced by this titan of cinema. What? Don't want to? Yeah, that's what I thought. But as amazing as J.E.J.'s life was, it seems almost impossible when you look at where he started. James Earl Jones was born in the countryside of Mississippi on January 17, 1931. Jones's family life was complicated. James's father, Robert Earl Jones, split from his mother Ruth soon after he was born. And even then, he wasn't raised by his mom as much as he was raised by his grandmother. Add to that the fact that James' family grew up poor, and one could say that Jones was destined for a life of chaos. But for the most part, J.E.J. enjoyed his childhood. That is, until the move. When Jones was 6, his family moved from Mississippi to another state that starts with an M, Michigan. That's a huge change, moving over 800 miles away when all you've known is the quiet farmland of Mississippi. And for James Earl Jones, it wasn't just tough. In his own words, it was straight up traumatic. He said later on in life that what made the move so hard on him was the fact that he didn't know if he'd ever see his home again. Or as he put it was leaving the soil that I had touched with my bare feet, and I didn't know if I'd touch that soil with my bare feet again. And that was traumatic for me. And trauma is not just a bad thing that happens to people. It's a bad thing that changes your brain. When people go through horrible things like tornadoes, war, or homelessness, it can cause your brain to grow in a way that it otherwise wouldn't. This causes some people to have flashbacks or get anxiety or depression. This is what trauma does, and it doesn't have to be a world-ending thing. But for James Earl Jones, the move didn't just take away his home, it also took his voice.
He was a boy who stuttered.
He spent years not talking at all.
So we have one of the greatest actors of our time who started out being raised by his grandmother, moving to the other side of the country, and now, due to the trauma of leaving your friends and family possibly forever, he now has a new battle to face: stuttering. Stuttering is a speech impediment that often shows as someone repeating a syllable or word. Like, instead of saying street, someone with a stutter might say street. For some people, stuttering is a struggle they've always had since they've been able to talk. But studies show that stuttering can also be the result of a brain that's been traumatized. James Earl Jones didn't always have a stutter, but after the move to Michigan, his fear and anxiety of never seeing his home again, he found himself at a loss for words until he was in high school. In fact, his stutter was so bad that J.E.J. straight up gave up on talking altogether. This is facts. One of the most recognizable voices of our time started out as a kid who didn't talk. And as it turns out, it's kind of hard to make friends if you don't talk to anybody. So not only was James's brain literally stopping him from sharing his thoughts and feelings, it was preventing him from meeting new people in a new place that he was forced to live in. But even though his body was failing to communicate, his mind found a way through. Jones was a talented poet growing up. It would craft work so great that no one would believe that it was the stuttering kid who never talked who penned it. In fact, it was one of James Earl's teachers that was able to inspire the young legend into making to recite one of his poems out loud in front of the class. And, well, you know what? I'm gonna let the man explain it himself.
And Donald Crouch used that as a reason to challenge me. He said, I don't think this is a good poem. It's so good, I don't think you wrote it. To prove you wrote it, get up in front of the class and say it out loud. And I got up and I said it and didn't stutter.
And that was the beginning of a massive turnaround for James Earl. He used poetry to overcome his shyness and communicate with others. Let's just take a moment to say how massive that is. We have someone who was so afraid of their own voice that they didn't talk for years, finally finding their voice through art. And right there is the power of creativity. Whether it's through a poem, a painting, or song, art has so many ways to express yourself beyond words. And it can challenge you to go even beyond yourself and become someone you thought you'd never be. In a way, turning yourself into a work of art. And as J.E.J. got older, his love for the spoken word grew. He became interested in acting. And after high school, he started out not on the silver screen, but on Broadway, performing in stage plays where he was able to get his name out there. And his success grew and he started getting small roles in movies. But as he continued on his grind, James Earl Jones soon found the opportunity of a lifetime to enter a world of a galaxy far, far away.
And naturally, I wanted to make Darth Vader more interesting, more subtle, you know.
Picture this. It's the late 70s and you're George Lucas, an up-and-coming director who has a crazy sci-fi adventure movie that you want to share with the world. It's got robots, space knights, and laser swords. Super cool stuff. You got your characters, but you're missing something. The voice of your villain, Darth Vader. You want a deep, chilling voice that sticks with you, a voice that sends fear into the hearts of anyone who hears it. Enter James Earl Jones. He took that role and ran with it. There is no one else who can be Vader. In fact, you want to hear what Vader might have sounded like if they went with the guy who was in the Vader suit? One of the greatest villains of all time almost sounded like this.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
Yeah, doesn't quite hit the same way, does it?
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take it away.
And from that point on, J.E.J. made his mark on movie history. James Earl got gigs as a narrator and voiceover work, making him one of the most recognizable voices in media. And you better believe he was rewarded for his work. He is only one of 19 people in history to get the 4 biggest awards in arts: an Emmy for TV, a Grammy for music, an Oscar for movies, and a Tony for stage acting. Or as the real ones call it, EGOT. And whether you know him best as Darth Vader, Mufasa, or Eddie Murphy's dad from Coming to America, even if you didn't know his name, you know James Earl's voice. And again, this is a man who spent most of his childhood not talking and stuttering whenever he did. And that right there is the big takeaway from James Earl Jones's life. Don't limit yourself. If J.E.J. had stayed in his funk of despair after leaving Mississippi, if he had not taken on his teacher's challenge to read his poem out loud, if he had never found a way past his stuttering, then the world would have missed out on the talents of a man who persevered and overcame his own limitations. What is stopping you from getting the life that you want? Maybe it's a medical thing like J.E.J., or maybe you're shy yourself. Trust me when I say that those obstacles, as real as they are, can be worked around, even if you can't get rid of them. Because James Earl never actually got rid of his stutter. He always had it. That doesn't mean that it has to turn into an excuse as to why you can't accomplish your goals. Ask yourself what you like. Maybe it's poetry, or sports, or dancing. Use that thing to overcome your fears just like James Earl did. Use your strengths to overcome your weakness. James Earl Jones left behind more than just iconic lines and a recognizable voice, but a blueprint for becoming whoever you want to be. Hey everyone, it's the Guidance Guy, and today we're starting things off a little differently today, because this week a lot of us are celebrating Start With Hello, a time to celebrate those we interact with and finding ways to make everyone welcome. But have you ever wondered why we do Start With Hello Week? The idea started with the organization Sandy Hook Promise, a group founded by families impacted by the Sandy Hook school attack that happened back in 2012. But this year it's a little different. We're at the end of Start With Hello Week on the heels of yet another school tragedy, this time at Appalachian High School in Georgia. And let's be honest, this could be a scary time to be in school right now. On top of the school attack, we have idiots who think that they're funny, writing threats to schools and police about which schools are going to be next. You might feel scared or anxious right now. Please know that you're not alone in what you feel. Your classmates, parents, even your teachers may be feeling the exact same way. And you know what? It's okay to feel those feelings. Just make sure that you share those feelings with someone, a friend, trusted adult, or your school counselor if your school has one. So what are we going to do today with all this in mind? Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to waste any time talking about the people who did these evil acts. They did it for their 15 minutes of fame, they got it, and I'm not about to give them any more attention. Instead, what I want to do is take time to remember some of the victims of these attacks and how they can inspire all of us to start with hello. You ready? Then let's go. It's guidance time.
This playground behind the Mystic YMCA will honor the life of Grace McDonald, a place where angels play and a place where her artistic spirit will soar.
Let's start our journey with Miss Grace Audrey McDonald. She was born on November 4, 2005 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and passed away during the Sandy Hook Elementary School attack on December 14, 2012. But I want to focus on Grace's life. Even though she was young, Grace had many passions, and at her core, Grace was a creative. She enjoyed baking. She even baked something new with her mom every week. In fact, Lynn, Grace's mom, to this day still bakes something every week in order to stay connected with her daughter. But of course, when I say Grace is artistic, she had an interest in the classic arts as well. She loved sculpting and painting, but also music, and even went to a Taylor Swift concert at one point. With Grace, we see a young girl who was born to create, be it a cupcake, a painting, or even a song. And if you have that passion for art, you can use that to connect with others. Everybody loves food. We kind of need it to live and all. But it takes a special person to want to make it. Even asking someone what their favorite food is a great start. But then go even deeper and ask them if they know how to make it. Or if the person's from a different country than you, ask them how their food is made. Just make sure to be respectful about it. And for art, that's easy too. See if your school has an art club, and if not, see if you can start one. Talk to your art teacher about their favorite pieces of art and make art with others. Grace shared her gifts, hobbies, and creations with others. And when we do the same, we can bring the joy that Grace brought to so many every single day.
49-year-old Chris Hickson, U.S. Navy Reserve veteran, 2 tours in Iraq, a husband and father, teacher.
Say hello to Christopher Hickson. Chris was the athletic director at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High and was born on February 25, 1968 in Easton, Pennsylvania, and passed away during the tragedy at that school on Valentine's Day of 2018. Chris left behind a legacy of dedication and sacrifice not just to his students, but also our country. Before Mr. Hickson was a teacher, he actually served in the U.S. Navy. In fact, he was with the Navy for 27 years before entering education. And as any teacher will tell you, being a teacher requires 110%, at least, and Chris understood the assignment. When he became the athletic director, he wanted to ensure that his students got the chance to participate in any sport they wanted. And when 9 of his school sports teams didn't have any coaches, Chris could have made the choice to shut down those teams and tell those students they would have to go to another school if they want to do something like wrestling. But Chris didn't accept that. He went in and did it himself. He became the coach for 9 different sports teams at Stoneman Douglas. And for those wondering, he did it for free, without getting any sort of bag for these immense jobs. Chris took it like a champ while still doing his other responsibilities. With Chris, we see a man who loved the thrill of competition, going up against the best to beat the best. And if you're like that, it's easy to find others who do too. If you see someone with your favorite team's logo on their backpack or wearing their jersey to school before a big game, ask them what position they play, how long have they been playing the sport, and then it's a cakewalk from there. At face value, sports are just a game, but for Petty Officer Hickson, it was more than that. It was a way to connect with students and teach them about life, growth, and their own potential.
Mason was known for having a big smile. A family friend called him the sweetest, most loving soul.
Our last highlight is going to be looking at one of the students from Appalachia High, Mason Skimmerhorn. Even in his short 14 years of life, those who knew him were able to easily describe the kind of young man he was. A bold youngster, Mason's favorite color was red, and it was such a part of him that at his funeral everyone wore red to show their love. Mason was also a curious learner. He was actually learning how to play the trumpet because his sister Alana could also play it. But perhaps his biggest passion was gaming. Mason enjoyed the many worlds that exist within video games, and his favorite being the Kingdom Hearts franchise, the world where anime and Disney combine. In recent years, gaming has become the biggest money-making source of entertainment in the world, even more than movies and TV combined. So chances are you know someone who's a gamer, whether it's classics like Pokemon or Minecraft, popular choices like Fortnite, or the latest hotness. Finding someone who enjoys a good game isn't hard. Find someone who shares that interest and ask them what their favorite game is, or their handle so you can play together. The world of gaming is made for community. It's just a matter of finding your own. Start With a Low Week was created to combat the loneliness and isolation that can trigger these tragedies. And even in moments where we feel like there's nothing we can do, we always have a choice. It could be a smile, a wave, or a simple positive word. Being there for those around you and building friendships can go a long way in helping others. And if you're ever scared of doing it, ask yourself, would you want someone to do the same for you? Track and field, the oldest sport. There's nothing more simple in athletics than figuring out who's the fastest. And when it comes to the quickest sprinters, you've seen the faces, you know the names. But there's one name that we tend to forget that we need to keep in our mouths. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And as Black History Month continues, let's take a look at a woman who overcame not just hurdles on the track, but in her personal life to go further than anyone thought was possible. Wilma Rudolph. Let's go! It's got its time.
There was really a series of childhood illnesses, and they began, of course, with scarlet fever and pneumonia, and the end result was really polio.
Wilma Rudolph's life is one defined by overcoming the odds and redefining what's possible. And it started from the moment she was born. Wilma was born on June 23, 1940 in Tennessee, where she was the 20th child born in her family. Yes, you heard that right. The woman who would become known as the Tornado had 19 brothers and sisters before her, and she wasn't even the last one, because she had 2 more siblings after that. But before her parents could celebrate too much, they had to deal with the fact that Wilma was born premature, which is doctor talk for a baby that's not quite ready to live out of their mommy's tummy. When she was born, the Black Pearl weighed in at 4.5 pounds, which, BT dubs, isn't a good weight for a brand new baby. You want that little one to come in at least 5.5 pounds. Homegirl weighed as much as a juice carton. But being born premature doesn't just make you super skinny. A premature baby can have problems breathing, and their situations can make it hard for their brains and other organs to grow properly, which can lead to everything from diabetes, asthma, to learning disabilities when they become kids, assuming they make it that far. And this was the 1940s, when medical advancements aren't what they are now. But because we're talking about her right now, by a miracle, the Black Pearl made it through those tough conditions. But fast forward a couple years and we find out her medical struggles had only just begun. The future track star often got sick growing up, another risk of being born premature. And at 5, she got one of the most dangerous diseases she could get at the time, polio. These days, polio is pretty much dead. As long as you get the vaccine, you're not getting it, which is really good because polio used to be a literal killer back in the day. In the worst case, it can cause paralysis or the inability to move certain body parts. Although Rudolph was able to beat polio, it left her with a left leg and foot not being as strong as the right one due to the paralysis. Back in the day, those who had their legs paralyzed from polio had to wear special braces to help them walk and gain strength in that leg again. And that's what happened with Wilma. But this doesn't make sense, right? One of the goats of track started out as a sickly girl who at one point couldn't even move her legs right? How did she become one of the best to ever do it? Stay tuned.
I can think about, the wonderful sisters and brothers that I had.
Even if Wilma Rudolph didn't become one of the greatest Olympians of all time, the fact that she overcame polio makes her story worthwhile on its own. But going from only one good leg to becoming an Olympian? How does that work exactly? Well, for starters, she didn't do it alone.
With massive help and sacrifice from Rudolph's family, the woman who would become known as the Flash was able to not just to get the medical support she needed, such as massages to help her strengthen her leg muscles, but they also homeschooled her during her recovery. Cause remember, she got sick often, so staying home was the best option to keep her medically safe. But how long do you think she needed to go to the doctors, go through physical therapy, and be homeschooled before her body fully recovered? A couple months? A school year? Nah, Wilma lived like this for 7 years. It wasn't until she was 12 years old that the Black Gazelle was able to get enough strength in her leg again to walk without a brace or any other assistance. And remember, she got polio when she was 5. So from the time that she was in kindergarten until she was in 7th grade, she had to get her body strong enough to walk just like most people do. And she couldn't have done that by herself. She had her family there with her. Take notes on this one. Don't be afraid of asking for help or receiving help, because Wilma couldn't have fully recovered like that by herself. Her family took her to the doctor. They massaged her leg and helped her with exercises to help gain that lost muscle that polio took from her. Always remember that greatness is a team sport. Speaking of sports, when Rudolph was able to walk, she quickly wanted to run. With her competitive spirit burning within her, she wanted to make up for lost time. She started out in basketball, but quickly grew to love track, and sprinting specifically. And it was sprinting that helped her not only go to college, but create a name for herself in track and field history. But let's step back a sec real quick. Wilma Rudolph started out as a baby born too soon, grew up getting sick a lot, and ended up getting one of the most dangerous diseases of the time, got paralyzed from it, but with the help of her family was able to overcome the illness and gain the ability to walk again, and now is an all-star athlete. But why should we remember her name as we do Usain Bolt or Sha'Carri Richardson? Stay with me here.
I retired, it became history. It was the fastest single race that I'd ever ran in the history of my career.
The Chattanooga Choo Choo's first taste of the big stage came in 1956 with the Olympics in Melbourne, Australia. Though she didn't run in any individual events, she did run the 4x100 relay, where her team got the bronze medal. Not bad for her first go-round, but she wanted to do better and go further. So she got back to training and prepared for the next Olympics, which came in 1960 in Rome, Italy. This time, she didn't just run the same relay that she won bronze in 4 years earlier. She entered in the 100 and 200 meter races as well. Want to know how she did in those? My people, that was not a race. That was a beatdown. Do you think the other races that she just wrecked knew that she grew up with polio? And she did the same thing in her other 2 races, not just winning the gold medal in all 3 of her events, but setting brand new world records at the time. And though she retired after the Rome Olympics, her legacy was set from that point on. She was called the fastest woman alive. She was put in the same conversations as Muhammad Ali when talking about the greatest athletes to come out of those Olympics. And her hometown of Clarksville was so proud of her that they built a statue of her in her honor in a community center that's also named after her. Wilma opened the door for other athletes to get to her level and beyond it as she became a coach after she stepped out the podium for the last time. And all of this came from a woman who could have used her health as a crutch, could have never walked right after beating polio, or too afraid to try sports after everything she'd been through. But she didn't do that. Wilma Rudolph's life shows us what Black history is all about. Not just the greatness and the happy ending, but the struggle and grit that led to it. This is what we need to remember for ourselves. We all have our own junk to deal with, and we always have a choice. We can waste time making excuses, or comparing whose pain is worse, or we can do what Wilma did. See our challenges, get the right people around us, and do what needs to be done until the challenge turns into triumph. Rise up, GG Nation, cause it's time for Guidance Guy Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And happy College Colors Day. College football is back, and this year is going to be even better than ever. With 12 teams able to make it to the playoff, we're getting even more of what makes this sport special. More insane plays, more chaos, and the answer to the most important question we have this season: which marching band is going to have the best version of Not Like Us? They not like us. They not like us. And today, we're going to look at a team that's been making major moves the last 8 years, the University of Central Florida. The UCF football story is one of ride-or-die resilience, which is, if you recall, the ability to bounce back from tough times. And the Knights' brand of black and gold resilience has gotten them out of the lowest depths to the highest heights, as you'll soon see. But before we get started, be sure to spike that subscribe button and lob a like to this video. Let's go! It's guidance time.
And again, there's nothing wrong with your TV sets, folks. That's the stadium that's vibrating. Actually, we can feel a little bit up here.
Before we even get started, let's go over the 3 tips of resiliency real quick. Someone who is resilient is someone who blocks out the negative, is creative, and never gives up. And just like last week, see where you think the Knights use these traits. UCF has made a lot of noise in the college football world despite being a pretty young school. Unlike most universities that are so old their students could have gotten there on the first day of class in a horse and buggy, UCF was founded in 1963, only 61 years ago. And it wasn't even called UCF at the time. Back in the day, it was Florida Technological University, or FTU. And FTU didn't even have a football team until it renamed itself the University of Central Florida and transformed from the Citronauts to the Golden Knights. And for the record, we're called the Knights now. Don't call us Golden no more. It's like folk who still call country music country western. You just exposed your boomerness right there. They started in Division III and they clawed their way into the Division I football, where they played in 3 different conferences before finally breaking through into the big leagues and joining the Big 12 last year. And as if that wasn't resilient enough, in order to get into the Big 12, they had to win. And win they did. With 6 conference championships, 6 bowl wins, and even a national championship. Look, don't at me on this. It's recognized by the NCAA, so it counts. UCF has made a huge splash in college football in the last decade. A lot more than what some other schools can say about their less than stellar programs. But before getting to the biggest stage of the sport, the Knights had to go through some, let's call them growing pains.
150 throwing it. Schneider back to work. Got some time in the pocket, throwing down, picked off.
The date, September 3rd, 2015. The location, Bright House Network Stadium, where the Knights played. Their opponent, the FIU Golden Panthers. At this point, the Knights were coming off a conference championship and one of their best seasons last year. They'd played FIU before and had a winning record over them. This was their first game of the season. The hype was high, and Knight Nation was expecting the dub. However, the game was much closer than expected, ultimately coming down to a last-second field goal attempt in order for the Knights to clinch the win. There was one problem, though. This missed kick. This was not simply a mistake or a slip of the foot. This was a warning of just how bad the 2015 season was going to be. So, the football season has 12 games, not counting bowl games. You want to know how many games UCF won that year? I'm gonna give you a sec.
0!
In 2015, UCF lost every single game they played. A few games were close, but most were not. This was one of the lowest points that the Knights have ever seen, and it would have been easy for that kind of season to define an entire program. They could have accepted their fate and just stopped caring, satisfied with being a team that nobody takes seriously and has nothing but a legacy of trash.
Trash!
Oh yeah, I'm a hater.
I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk.
But thankfully, this isn't the end of the story.
Giving this to Killings. In space where he's lethal. Killings taking it all the way.
The Black and Gold Brigade had to make some major changes in order to bounce back from a winless season. Enter Scott Frost, who went from the University of Oregon's offensive coordinator to UCF's new head coach. And from the West Coast, he brought with him a new offense, a new approach, and most importantly, a new mindset. A mindset of creativity, blocking out the negative, and not giving up. Hold up, where have I heard that before? But even with all that, the Knights needed time to reach their peak. In 2016, the year after they lost every game, UCF ended up going 6-7. A definite improvement from 2015, but you can't call that a winning season. But in 2017, the Knights were ready to put the college football world on notice. They went and dominated their competition. The Knights won every single game that season, with 8 games where they just wrecked the other team. All this winning got UCF their 6th conference championship, a victory over SEC giant Auburn, a Peach Bowl win, and that national championship we mentioned earlier. To this day, UCF is the only program in college football to go from winless to undefeated in a 2-year time span. And that season got people's attention. There were fans and there were haters, but by the end of the season, UCF had done what most had thought was impossible after the 2015 season. But let's make it personal. What's impossible for you?
For UCF, a landmark victory for a great kid and a great team.
What do TVs, cars, and planes have in common? 200 years ago, these things didn't exist. People couldn't even imagine being able to fly in the sky or not needing a horse or train to get around. And trust, a lot of fans of UCF thought that pulling off what they did back in 2017 was just as unrealistic. But once again, we see resiliency at work. And with our Knights, we learned another important aspect of resilience. results take time. For our high-reaching, seemingly impossible goals, we need to remember that most times we'll need to be patient in order to get our win. The Knights that went through the winless season and then the undefeated season, they had to wait through training camps, workouts, film sessions, and oh yeah, a few losses. But if we're blocking out the negative, not giving up while being creative, we will see results. UCF did all that and waited patiently until they could hang a banner at Spectrum Stadium. And when we do the same, we get closer to our own win, one step at a time. Iron Man, founding member of the Avengers and one of the most important characters in the MCU, known the world over as one of the greatest heroes of all time. What we often forget is that he didn't start that way. Rise up, GG Nation, because it's time for Guidance Guide Friday, your weekly guidance lesson from your internet school counselor. And today, as we enter 2025, let's take a closer look to see just how Tony Stark went from billionaire playboy philanthropist to GOAT. Let's go! It's guidance time!
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Listen, I'm not gonna waste time telling you who Iron Man is. If you need a tutorial on who Iron Man is, where have you been for the last almost 20 years, bro? If I were to ask you who Tony Stark is, I'm willing to bet that a lot of you would talk about his big-time accomplishments. Being the CEO of Stark Industries, surviving being held hostage in the middle of the desert, or saving the world/universe multiple times. And while all of that is true, there's a huge part of Stark's story that we often forget in all the shine of his W's. Tony didn't come out of the box a perfect person. In fact, if we're keeping it a buck, he was a massive jerk.
You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk.
Like the fact that the biggest enemy in the first Avengers and Iron Man movies wasn't Obadiah or Loki, it was Tony's own ego. Stark's annoying habit of believing that he knew better than anybody in any given situation might have given him confidence, but also made him extremely unlikable. Kinda hard to be a team player when you truly believe that you don't need anybody else because you're the main character of life. Of course, there's nothing wrong with believing in yourself and your abilities. That's all a part of having good self-esteem and liking yourself. But when you need to be the center of attention all the time or put people down to make yourself feel good, both are things that Tony did back in the day, it's a red flag that whoever's doing that probably doesn't like themselves as much as they want you to think. Because those with healthy self-esteem don't feel the need to hype themselves up all the time and certainly don't see the good in tearing others down. Another issue Tony's had is with his recklessness. Was almost sacrificing himself in the first Avengers movie the only way to save the world? Or how about Iron Man 2, when he waited way too long to let anybody know that his iron heart was slowly poisoning him and that he needed help? And that's another sign that your ego's a little too big there. And do we need to talk about Ultron? Yeah, let's turn ChatGPT into a superhero that can save the world for us.
What could possibly go wrong?
For a genius, Tony doesn't always think things out. And lastly, the Iron Man has a really strong stubborn streak going on. Very much connected to his ego problem, Stark can be very my way or the highway about things. Like, really man, was the only way to figure out the whole Sokovia Accords thing was to duke it out with your best friends in a random high schooler that you've been stalking? Hey yo! I remind you of this, not because this is a secret hit piece on the man who made the MCU, but to remind you that at the end of the day, every single person is just that, a person. They will have their flaws, mistakes, and character weaknesses that can really mess them up if they allow them to. But keep this in mind as we move on from Iron Man's character flaws to the actual L's he's had to take throughout the years. Looking back at Iron Man's story, we see a lot of victories that he's notched up, but what we often forget are his stumbles, mistakes, and absolute failures that he had along the way. If we go back to the first Iron Man movie, we remember Tony escaping the cave with his beta version Iron Man suit, and then later the appearance of his more iconic costume. But do you recall his testing montage? Where we see Stark improve his suit through trial and error, and let's be real, it was a lot more error than trial.
And 3, 2, 1.
Homeboy gets himself wrecked over and over again just to get the suit exactly the way he wanted it to. And what was the end result? The birth of a hero. And if we go back to Age of Ultron, it's really easy to say after the fact that Ultron was always going to go rogue and become the very problem it was trying to prevent. But the Iron Man really saw the potential in having a suit of armor around the world to go beyond the Avengers' limitations. And what did Tony do when his grand scheme blew up in his face and literally created a whole behind country? He apologized,
made amends, and did better. And that's what we could do in times when we screw up. Wallowing in it won't help you or anyone else, and blaming others doesn't change the facts. And we know this because Stark did both. In Iron Man 2, when his mechanical heart was slowly killing him, he dove into a well of despair over his impending doom. His situation didn't change until his mindset did, when he went back to the lab to start getting better. Or how about an Endgame when, after getting saved from the vacuum of space, Stark blames Captain America for Thanos winning and allowing the snap to happen. Did he feel better in the moment? Yeah, a little bit. But did it fix anything?
Nope.
It wasn't until he talked to Cap, apologized, and took responsibility for his role in the Thanos situation. Not only were the Avengers able to take the first step in saving the universe, but repairing his relationship with Steve. And while we're on the topic of Endgame, even though the time heist ended up being successful, it wasn't a flawless mission. When Tony, Cap, and Ant-Man go back to the first Avengers movie to get the first Infinity Stone, they end up taking an L when Loki escapes with the glowing rock. And take into account that everyone was told that there would be no do-overs, it wasn't looking good. What do you do in a situation like that? Well, you could be like the Avenger that everybody loves to forget and have a freak out about it. Or you could do what Iron Man and Cap did. Get creative and find another way around the problem. They end up going back to the 70s, getting the stone back, all while Tony gets some one-on-one time with his old man. And because of that creativity and the combined efforts of the other Avengers, it led up to them saving the world, the universe, and one of the greatest moments in the MCU. And it's through moments like these that we can also realize that losses can lead to wins. As we've seen with Iron Man, every single time he tried to accomplish something great, he had to come up against either his own flaws as a person or mistakes that he made. And we're no different. We all have parts of ourselves that we wish we didn't have, or have made mistakes that we were able to Thanos snap away. But what we need to remember in this new year is that a loss is only a failure if you let it. Our world today is addicted to instant results, next day delivery. A top athlete needs to impact their team immediately, and any change we want to make to our lives needs to bring results yesterday. But Iron Man shows us that true victory isn't a three-step process. Sometimes we need to lose, to fall on our face and make mistakes. And when that happens, we can't take that as a sign to quit or that we're not good enough. Just realize that you need to find another way. We need to learn from our L's and make the most of our mistakes before we get the results we want. The story of Iron Man shows us a lot. How a selfish man can become selfless, how anyone can change, and that in order to get what we want in life, we will need to lose before we can win.